everybody, and welcome back to our cozy podcast studio. Mira here, ready to bring sunshine into your day. Even if it's cloudy outside, we're so thrilled to be back on YouTube, chatting with all of you amazing people. Oh,
Hey, folks. Leo chime in. Still trying to figure out how Mira manages to be so perky before noon. I swear, she probably runs on pure, unadulterated optimism and maybe a gallon of espresso. Welcome back to the show where we try to make sense of the world, one slightly sarcastic comparison at a time.
you know my secret ingredient is actually just loving life. But seriously, before we dive into today's country comparison adventure, I have to tell you about the most hilarious thing that happened to me this week.
Oh, please do, Mira. Knowing you, it probably involves glitter, a minor public disturbance, and possibly some bewildered pigeons. Lay it on us.
Almost no pigeons were involved this time, thankfully. So, I was at the supermarket, right? Trying to be all healthy and buy spinach. And you know those self-checkout machines?
Oh, the robotic overlords of grocery shopping? Yes, I am intimately familiar with their passive-aggressive beeping.
So, I'm scanning my spinach, and it just wouldn't scan. I tried like 5 times, and that robotic voice just kept saying, UNADNTIFIEDI PLESPLISEPLANBAGGINBEGA. It was so dramatic.
Oh, the drama of the self-checker. They always sound like they're personally offended by your produce choices.
So, in my infinite wisdom, I started talking to the machine. Like, come on, buddy, it's spinach. It's green. It's green. It's good for you. What's the problem? And of course, it just kept repeating UNIDNTIFIEDM in that monotone voice.
I can just picture you serenading a self-checkout machine with VeggieTales. Did it suddenly develop sentience and decide to cooperate?
No sentience, Leo. But a very kind lady behind me, probably wondering if I was having a full conversation with a toaster, offered to help. Turns out, I was scanning a price tag from a banana that somehow hitched a ride on my spinach bag. Oops.
The mystery of the unidentified spinach is solved. Classic Mira. That's almost as bewildering as trying to decipher the instructions on those instant noodle packets in foreign countries. Add boiling water, wait 3 minutes, and achieve enlightenment, right?
But hey, at least I provided some free entertainment at the supermarket. And you know what they say? Laughter is the best medicine. Even better than spinach, maybe. Oh.
True that, Mira. True that. Though, maybe next time, just ask for help before you start negotiating with the produce scanner. It might save you some public speaking practice for your stand-up routine.
Hey, my machine negotiation skills are top-notch. Maybe I should add self-checkout whisperer to my resume.
Go for it, Mira. Self-checkout whisperer and professional coffee spill survivor. Your resume is becoming legendary. But alright, enough about your supermarket adventures. Let's actually get to the point of why.
Our current topic. We compare general safety, crime statistics, and the cultural factors shaping them. From solid data to fascinating insights and real-life stories, we bring the numbers to life, or at least try not to bore you with them.
Exactly, Mira, because let's face it, crime stats can be drier than a week-old bagel. But safety? That's something we all care about, right? Whether you're planning a trip or just curious, knowing what you're walking into is key. So, Russia and Ukraine. Let's dive in, shall we?
Let's start with Russia, the land of vast bears. Just kidding, mostly. But seriously, when you think of safety in Russia, what first pops into your head, Leo? Is it spies? Is it snow? Tell us. Oh.
Spies and snow are definitely cinematic, Mira. But for general safety, we should probably think less James Bond and more everyday city life. In major Russian cities, like Moscow or St. Petersburg, you're generally as safe as any big European city. Pickpocketing, petty theft, the usual urban suspects.
The usual suspects. Those pesky pickpockets, always ruining a perfectly good sightseeing day. Oops, but it's true. Those little ninjas are everywhere in big cities, aren't they? So Russia's sounding pretty normal so far. What about Ukraine? Is it the same vibe, or are we talking different safety levels here? Wow!
Ukraine, especially pre-conflict, had a similar profile in major cities like Kyiv or Lviv. You've got your standard city crimes, nothing too wild. However, it's worth noting that corruption has historically been a bigger issue in Ukraine than in Russia, which can sometimes indirectly impact street-level safety and policing.
Corruption? The invisible villain. It's like the bad guy in a movie you can't quite see but you know is pulling strings somewhere. So, does that mean walking around Kyiv used to feel shoddier than Moscow in some ways? Or is it more about bureaucratic stuff behind the scenes? Whoa.
It's more behind the scenes, Mira. For tourists, it's not like you'd necessarily feel unsafe walking down the street because of corruption. It's more about how effectively crime is addressed and resolved. Think of it like if your phone gets stolen in Moscow, the police might be somewhat helpful. In Kyiv, maybe less so historically.
I see. So, it's more about the aftermath of a crime than the likelihood of it happening in the first place. Like, if you do become a victim who's got your back. That makes sense. And culturally, do you think there are differences in how Russians and Ukrainians approach safety? Like maybe street smarts are looking out for each other?
That's an interesting point, Mira. Culturally, both Russians and Ukrainians are generally quite resilient and street smart, especially in urban areas. They've both been through a lot historically, which tends to breed a certain watchfulness. Maybe a slight edge to Ukrainians in terms of community solidarity in everyday situations, just from my gut feeling.
Gut feeling is important. It's like that sixth sense that tells you which street to avoid after dark, or which vendor's dumplings might be a bit questionable. So both countries have that been through a lot vibe, which probably makes people pretty savvy about staying safe on a basic level. Ooh.
So I think that we can conquer that. Exactly. And when we talk about crime statistics, it's tricky because reporting on data reliability can vary. But broadly speaking, both countries have seen fluctuations in crime rates over the years, often tied to economic and political shifts. Neither is statistically among the most dangerous places globally for tourists in major cities if you stick to common sense precautions.
Common sense. The ultimate travel accessory. It's lighter than a suitcase and way more effective than pepper spray for most situations. So, for our listeners thinking about visiting either Russia or Ukraine, the takeaway is be aware, be smart, and maybe learn a few phrases to ask for help, just in case those pickpockets say, "Are you extra speedy?" What do you think? What do you think, Leo? Shall we move on to the next topic before we accidentally scare everyone into staying home?
Definitely, Mira. Unless we want to rebrand this podcast as Couch Tourism Weekly, let's pivot to something a little less crime-y. How about political stability? That's always a fun and light topic, right?
So we're diving into political stability and social harmony for Russia and Ukraine, right? It's like asking about the weather, but for governments.
Weather forecast for governments? Mostly cloudy with a chance of surprises? Yeah, Mira. Political stability and social harmony sounds like ability and social harmony sounds like a dry topic. But let's see if we can spice it up a bit. We're supposed to be talking about how these things affect people living there. Especially expats, right?
Because who wants to move somewhere and end up in a real-life political drama? Ooh, unless you're into that, I guess? Some people love drama. And most of us, the bit of calm is nice. So, first up, Russia. What do we know from, reliable data's age?
Reliable data is H. Love it. Sounds like our kind of research. Well, if reliable data is H involves watching news and maybe, reading between the lines of official pronouncements, then Russia's political scene is consistently consistent. Stable like a very firmly placed statue.
A statue! That's a good image, Leo. Solid, unmumming, maybe a little dusty. Oh, but seriously, It's been pretty much the same leadership for a while now, right? That's stability in one sense.
Oh, undeniably consistent leadership. Consistent like my coffee intake in the morning, you can set your watch by it. And just as predictable, some might argue. But hey, for some expats, that predictability is exactly what their lookwaits rock in their morning latte.
Some people like knowing what to expect. Like ordering your favorite pizza, you know it's going to be pepperoni, not pineapple, unless you accidentally wandered into a Shudder's pineapple pizza zone. Russia? Predictable politics check. What about social harmony? Are people generally getting along?
Getting along is a broad term, Mira. Are they having massive street brawls every Tuesday? Probably not. But social harmony, it's more like a carefully arranged orchestra. Everyone's playing their part, mostly in tune, under a very strong conductor.
A strong conductor. I like that. Someone keeping everyone harmonious. Better. Okay. I'll stop. But is it a happy orchestra? Or more of a disciplined orchestra? There's a difference.
Let's say it's an orchestra that knows its sheet music very well and plays it precisely. Enthusiasm levels may vary among the musicians, but the performance is always polished. And you know, Mira, sometimes polished and predictable is what people want, especially if they're used to, shall we say, less polished things elsewhere.
Right. Polished predictability. Sounds like a perfume. OD political stability. Okay, now let's switch gears to Ukraine. Whoa, completely different vibe, right?
Vibe? More like a whole different genre of music, Mira. If Russia is classical, Ukraine is jazz. Unpredictable, improvisational, sometimes a bit chaotic, but always lively. Wow. Politically, Ukraine has been, shall we say, dynamically evolving.
Dynamically evolving. That's putting it nicely. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, hasn't it? Lots of changes, lots of different leaders, lots of excitement. Well, for those who like their politics with a side of adrenaline.
Adrenaline and maybe a dash of uncertainty. For expats looking for a quiet life, Ukraine's political scene might seem a bit much. Unless they're adrenaline junkies in disguise.
Adrenaline junkie expats. There's a niche market we haven't tapped into yet. Oh, but social harmony in Ukraine. Is it more like a just jam session? Everyone improvising, sometimes clashing, sometimes creating something amazing.
Jazz jam session is a great analogy, Mira. Ukraine's social harmony is vibrantly diverse. Lots of different voices, opinions, backgrounds. It's not always smooth. There can be dissonance. Ouch. But there's also a lot of energy and passion.
Sounds like a spicy salsa. Sounds like a spicy salsa. So, maybe not always harmonious in the perfectly tuned orchestra sense, and harmonious in a bustling, lively marketplace sense. Boom. Lots of different sounds. Lots of different sounds. But it all creates a unique atmosphere.
A unique atmosphere. Ukraine's social harmony is more about robust debate and passionate opinions than quiet agreement. It's a society that's still figuring things out, still harmonizing its diverse parts.
A work in progress. Like my attempts at cooking. Sometimes it's a masterpiece. Sometimes, well, let's just say takeout is a good backup plan. Oops. So, for expats thinking about political stability and social harmony, Russia is the predictable statue. Ukraine is the jazz jam session.
Statue versus jam session, I like it, Mira. Concise and slightly absurd, which is our style, right? For expats, it really depends on their personality. Do they want the solid, predictable statue or the lively, sometimes chaotic jam session?
Or maybe they want to be part of the jam session. Wow, to be in the middle of all that vibrant, evolving just hands social harmony. It's a choice, right? No right or wrong answer, just different flavors of political and social life.
Different flavors, exactly. Like choosing between vodka and, say, H or Ilka? Both strong, both distinctive. And both will definitely give you a perspective on the local culture.
Perspectives, flavors, jam sessions, statues, wow. We've really covered the political and social harmony landscape, haven't we, Leo? Who knew reliable data as age could be so entertaining?
Entertaining and, dare I say, slightly informative. Maybe we should get into political weather forecasting as a side hustle, Mira. Jet off AI political weather reliably, unreliably, unreliable. Jet off, seriously, folks. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know in the comments statue or jam session.
Yeah. Statue or jam session? Comment below. And while you're down there, give us a like and subscribe. Oh, you know, for more of our reliably unreliable yet strangely informative podcasting adventures. Oh!
And if you're still scratching your head about which country is right for you, head over to Jet Off AI. They might not have political weather forecasts, but they've got tons of info to help you make your big move.
Jet Off AI, your guide to not spilling coffee on yourself while making life decisions. Because trust me, been there. Done that. Oops. Okay, what's next on our comparative country adventure? Our current topic. We compare economic conditions and cost of living into countries, exploring their impact on expats' financial realities. From solid job market stats to the price of borscht. Let's dive in. Oh.
Borscht economics. Sounds like a new reality show. But yeah, for anyone thinking of packing their bags, knowing if you'll be living like royalty or ramen only is pretty crucial.
So, Russia and Ukraine, right? Two fascinating neighbors, but when it comes to your wallet, are they distant cousins or identical twins? Oh, let's start with Russia. Big country, big economy. Or at least used to be.
Used to be is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, Mira. Let's just say the economic roller coaster in Russia is more loops than a theme park in Sochi. Well, oil prices go up, party time. Well, let's just say everyone tightens their belts.
Okay. Roller coaster economics. I like that analogy, Leo.
Moscow can definitely feel like mortgage or house territory in certain areas. Rent in the center, prepare for sticker shock. But like any big city, if you venture out a bit, you can find places that won't make your bank account weep openly. Think of it like finding a decent cup of coffee in a tourist trap possible, but you gotta hunt.
The eternal quest for affordable coffee. Relatable. What about Ukraine then? Is Kyiv kinder to the wallet than Moscow? Or is it also secretly plotting against our savings?
Kyiv is generally kinder, yes. Cost of living is significantly lower than Moscow, especially rent. You can actually find apartments in decent areas without needing to sell a kidney. Whoa, though keep in mind, significantly lower is relative. It's still a capital city, not some sleepy village where you barter chickens for housing.
No chicken bartering in Kyiv. Noted, noted. No. That sounds like a fun YouTube video idea. Expat attempts to barter chickens for apartment in Kyiv. We should pitch that to Jet Off AI. But back to reality, what about jobs? Is it easier to find work in Russia or Ukraine for expats?
Job markets are nuanced. Russia has historically had demand in sectors like oil and gas, tech, and certain specialized industries. But, you know, global events have turned to throw a wrench in things lately. Ukraine, pre-conflict, had a growing IT sector and opportunities in areas like agriculture and manufacturing. Again, pre-conflict is key.
Nuanced and pre-conflict. Code words for it's complicated, right? So, for the average expat looking for a job, are we talking needle in a haystack or plenty of hay, just gotta sift through it?
More like haystack is on fire and the needles are now made of smoke. Ouch! Okay, maybe a slight exaggeration. But seriously, job markets in both countries have become more challenging for expats recently. Language skills, specific in-demand expertise, and a healthy dose of resilience are now essential.
Resilience and maybe a fireproof suit for that haystack. Got it. So, if someone does manage to land a job, what kind of salaries are we looking at? Will we be swimming in rubles over Venia, or just paddling in a kiddie pool?
Salaries vary wildly depending on the sector, experience, and company, of course. In Russia, Pre-sanctions, some sectors offered competitive salaries. Ukraine generally had lower average salaries, but again, lower cost of living. Think Russia potential for a slightly bigger kiddie pool, maybe with a small inflatable slide. Both are still pools, you know?
Kiddie pool economics. We should trademark that, Leo. So, beyond rent and salaries, what about everyday expenses? Groceries, transport, entertainment, the stuff that actually fills up our days and drains our wallets.
Everyday expenses. In Russia, imported goods can be pricey thanks to tariffs and, global events. Local produce and products are generally more affordable. Public transport in cities is relatively cheap and efficient, especially the metro in Moscow and St. Petersburg. Entertainment. Well, vodka is always budget-friendly.
Vodka economics. Another catch Ross. We're on fire today, Leo. And in Ukraine. Are we talking borscht and budget-friendly everything? Or are there hidden costs lurking in the VO NYKY?
Ukraine is generally more budget-friendly across the board. Transport, entertainment are all generally cheaper than in Russia, especially outside of Kyiv. Local markets are amazing for fresh, affordable produce, and yes, borscht is delicious and won't break the bank. Just watch out for the hidden cost of accidentally ordering too much solo. Whoa!
Sounds like a fun culinary adventure for our YouTube channel. Expert tries to eat a mountain of solo in Ukraine. Be used for days. But seriously, Leo, if someone is choosing between purely from an economic conditions and cost of living perspective, what's your brutally honest comedian's take?
Brutally honest, right now, purely economically speaking and for general experts, Ukraine, despite the ongoing situation, generally offers a lower cost of living. Russia, while potentially having pockets of higher salaries in the past, is currently facing more economic uncertainty and higher costs for many things, especially imports. But, economic conditions are like the weather, they can change faster than my coffee gets cold.
Coffee cold economic shifts. Profound, Leo, truly profound. So, for our listeners trying to weigh their options, it's less about a clear winner and more about doing your homework, checking the latest updates, and maybe packing some extra ramen just in case?
Exactly, and maybe a good travel insurance policy, just to be extra prudent. You can find more detailed info, of course, on Jet.ai and probably a million articles online. But remember, numbers are just numbers. Your personal experience, your job situation, your cost of living reality.
It's all about finding the right economic kiddie pool for you. And maybe, just maybe, that pool comes with unlimited borscht and a side of solo surprise. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed our economic deep dive, folks, and let us know in the comments, borscht or solo. The debate starts now. All right, Leo. Let's dive into where people actually live in these places, shall we? Accommodation homes. Sweet homes. Homes, maybe not so sweet depending on your luck. We're talking Russian Ukraine, and I'm already picturing those classic Russian dakhas. The little wooden houses in the countryside. Imagine spending summer there. Maybe with a samovar and endless cups of tea.
Dakhas, Mira? You're going all Tolstoy on us. Well, dakhas are charming. Most expats aren't moving into a rustic wooden cabin straight away. Though, I bet trying to install Wi-Fi in a dacha would be a comedy show in itself. But seriously, especially in places like Moscow or Kyiv, we're looking at a whole different ballgame, right?
City life versus countryside is always a huge contrast, isn't it? Wow, in Russian cities, especially Moscow and St. Petersburg, you've got everything from grand old Soviet-era apartments to super modern skyscrapers, right? It's like stepping back in time and then suddenly BAM. You're in the future. I've heard that those older apartments can be an experience.
An experience is putting it mildly, Mira. Think high ceilings, maybe a bit drafty, and plumbing that might have seen the Tsar's days. Aha! But hey, character, right? And location. The Those central apartments in Russia often come with history baked right in.
Kiev has that cool Eastern European charm, doesn't it? Oh, I picture those lovely pre-revolutionary buildings with stucco and fancy balconies. So, Instagrammable, and maybe a little less Soviet plumbing experience than some places in Russia. Fingers crossed.
Don't get too excited about escaping plumbing adventures just yet, Mir. Kiev's older buildings are gorgeous, no doubt, but they also come with their own set of quirks. Let's just say you might become well acquainted with your local that's plumber for our YouTube viewers who don't speak Ukrainian. Ooh, learning a bit of the local lingo definitely helps, folks.
Sounds like a superhero name. Sent a KH Nick man to the rescue. Wow, but seriously, finding a place to rent, I imagine it's different in both countries. Is it like agents everywhere in Russia? Oops, sprinkling in some Russian there.
You nailed it, Mira. Russia, especially the big cities, can feel like a landlord's market. Finding rentals can be competitive, and you definitely need an agent. Get ready for paperwork and maybe a deposit that makes your eyes water. Whoa, Ukraine, Kiev especially, might be a tad easier, maybe a bit more options directly from owners.
Lottery, deposits. Ouch. That's never fun. Ouch! So, if you're on a budget, maybe Ukraine wins a point there. But what about quality? Are we talking palatial penthouses versus, well, slightly less palatial apartments in general? Or is it more nuanced than that?
Nuance is the word, Mira. Aha! In both Russia and Ukraine, you can find everything from basic budget-friendly places to ultra-luxury apartments that cost more than my entire stand-up career earnings. It really depends on your budget and where you're looking. But generally, newer buildings, especially in expat-heavy areas, will have higher standards and, surprise, higher prices.
No surprise there. You get what you pay for, as they say, right? But if you're looking for bang for your buck, or maybe euro, or dollar, or whatever currency you're rocking, which country might give you a bit more space for your money, do you think? Just for our listeners trying to decide where to get the most square meters.
You're becoming a pro, Mira. Generally speaking, Ukraine, again especially outside the absolute city center of Kiev, might offer slightly more space for your money compared to Moscow or Street. Petersburg, Russia's major cities are just pricier. But then again, cost of living is just one piece of the puzzle, isn't it? For more on that, folks, check out Jet Off A. We've got articles galore.
Absolutely. It's all about the bigger picture, isn't it? And what about the style of housing? Is there a typical Russian apartment vibe versus the Ukrainian one? Or am I just stereotyping again? Picturing bears and vodka bottles in every Russian flat? Oops.
Bears and vodka bottles are optional extras, Mira. But you might see a bit more of a classic or traditional style in some Russian apartments. Maybe a bit more ornate. A touch of that imperial grandeur lingering. Ukrainian apartments, especially in Kiev, can feel a bit more Scandinavian influenced in some newer developments.
Scandinavian vibes. Now you're talking my language. Light, very minimalist, but then again, I do love a bit of ornate grandeur too. Decisions. Maybe we need to take a poll on our YouTube channel. Team Dacha versus Team Scandinavian apartment. What do you think, Leo?
Team Dacha versus Team Scandinavian apartment. I love it, Mira. Let's get those comments rolling in. And hey, while you're commenting, don't forget to like and subscribe, folks. Help us keep this board our own apartments after all. Oops, did I say that out loud?
Lear, incorrigible. But he's right, folks. Like, subscribe, share. Help us continue our important mission of comparing countries and making you laugh. And maybe, just maybe, helping you find your perfect apartment, whether it's in Russia or Ukraine, or somewhere else entirely. The world is your oyster. Or should I say, your apartment. Aha!
You're perfect tending, Mira. On that note, I think we've explored the accommodation landscape enough for today. Unless you have a sudden urge to discuss the merits of communal apartments versus luxury condos?
Communal apartments versus luxury condos? Tempting. But maybe we'll save that for a deep dive episode, Leah? For now, I think we've given our listeners a good taste of housing options. Time for a coffee break, I think.
Coffee break sounds excellent, Mira. And maybe we can brainstorm our communal apartments versus luxury condos episode over that coffee. Until next time, folks, take care.
Okay, Leo. Let's dive into something that can either be or a total maze for anyone thinking of moving countries visa stuff. I mean, who hasn't dreamt of a romantic escape? Only to be faced with forms taller than their luggage. Ooh.
Mira, you're paying visa applications like some kind of obstacle course for love-struck tourists. But you're right. For anyone actually trying to live somewhere, visas and immigration are less romantic comedy and more Kafka novel.
Russia big mysterious land of Balkan bears. Well, maybe not bears in Moscow, but you get the picture. Whoa. Getting a tourist visa used to be like, okay, fill out this form, jump through this hoop, maybe do a little dance. But now it's supposedly a bit easier with e-visas for some nationalities, right? Though I bet easier is still relative.
Easier in Russia might mean only slightly soul-crushing bureaucracy instead of completely soul-crushing bureaucracy. Instead of completely soul-crushing bureaucracy. I hear tales of paperwork jungles and waiting games that could test the patience of a saint. You need invitation confirmations, and enough stamps to wallpaper a small apartment.
Don't forget the joy of collecting official stamps. Oh. It's like a scavenger hunt, but instead of treasure, you get permission to exist in another country. Ukraine, on the other hand, has been waving a visa-free flag for many countries for short stays, which sounds pretty welcoming, doesn't it?
Ukraine's visa-free policy is definitely more like rolling out the welcome mat than a bureaucratic brick wall. For tourists anyway. But for longer stays, residency, work permits, I imagine the official procedures still have their own special brand of, let's call it, charm.
Charm is one word for it. I'm thinking adventure maybe. Like, embark on a thrilling quest through the land of official forms. Will you survive? Find out next time. Wow. Do you think they hand out medals for successfully navigating immigration in either place? They should.
Medals. Maybe just a strong cup of coffee and a therapist referral. For Russia, getting a work permit always sounded like you needed to prove you were more qualified than every single Russian citizen, plus solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded.
Blindfolded Rubik's Cube while reciting Pushkin backwards. That sounds about right. And for Ukraine, while they're trying to be more open, I've heard whispers of, well, let's just say the path isn't always paved with sunflowers. Ouch.
Sunflowers might be lovely, but paperwork is paperwork no matter where you go. Unofficial procedures often translate to prepare for a marathon of standing in lines, deciphering cryptic instructions, and developing a deep appreciation for patience.
The most crucial item to pack for immigration, right after your passport and maybe a stress ball. And right after your language, Leo. Imagine trying to decipher all this in Russian or Ukrainian if you only speak English. Oops.
Oh, language barriers and bureaucracy are comedy gold, Mira. If you're watching from afar and not living it. Imagine asking for a residency permit and accidentally requesting a recipe for pierogi. Pierogi residency sounds pretty good too.
Pierogi residency. I love it. Maybe that's the secret to smooth immigration, just bribe officials with delicious food. Seriously, navigating officialdom in any foreign language must be like trying to solve a crossword puzzle in Klingon. Whoa.
Klingon bureaucracy. Now there's a podcast episode idea. But bad for both Russia and Ukraine. Having a local lawyer or consultant is less of a luxury and more of a survival, till if you're dealing with anything beyond a quick tourist visa.
Absolutely. A local guide through the bureaucratic jungle. Like Indiana Jones, but with more phones and less snakes. Wow. And probably less Federer, sadly. Though a Federer, sadly. Though a fade or might actually help you look more official. Right?
I fid or under really serious expression. That's your official procedure starter kit. But yeah, professional help probably saves you from pulling your hair out or accidentally signing away your firstborn child in some document you didn't quite understand. Ouch.
Oh goodness, signing away your firstborn. That took a dark turn, Leo. That makes the point. Bureaucracy can feel like a scary beast, especially in a new country. So for both Russia and Ukraine, these might be in the eye of the beholder, and heavily dependent on how much help you get, and maybe how many peer orgy you bring along. Ooh.
Exactly, Mira. Visa, immigration, and official procedures in Russia and Ukraine. Let's just say proceed with caution. Bring snacks, and maybe a Klingon dictionary for good measure. And definitely check out Jet Off AI for more practical, slightly less sarcastic advice. And if you like this chat, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube.
Okay, Leo. Let's chat about something super important for everyone, especially if you're thinking of moving countries' healthcare. Topic number 7, access to and quality of health services in Russia and Ukraine. Ugh, sounds serious, but we'll make it fun, right?
So I think that we can... You're always optimistic. Like, Mira, you're always optimistic. Like finding a funny bone during surgery. But yeah, vital topic. Especially if your idea of access is, can I get a decent bandage without selling a kidney?
So, let's start with Russia. Huge country, right? Like, you could get lost for days just trying to find a clinic. Wow. I bet getting healthcare there is like playing Russian roulette. With your health. Oops. Did I go too far?
Mira, sometimes your jokes are like Russian winners a bit biting. But you're not totally wrong. Russia, vast, yes. Healthcare, a bit of a mixed bag. Public system is there, technically free, like free air technically available. But sometimes you'd rather pay for the bottled kind.
Bole healthcare. Love it. So, public is there. What's the bottled air equivalent? Are they like super fancy, with gold-plated stethoscopes?
Gold-plated stethoscopes. In Russia, maybe for oligarchs. Private healthcare exists, yes. Often better quality, shorter waits, more English-speaking doctors crucial if your Russian is limited to ordering vodka. But expect to pay. It's not exactly a bargain basement situation.
So, private is pricier, So, private is pricier but better. Makes sense. What about Ukraine? Is it similar? Are they also running the free but maybe not so effective system?
Ukraine. Similar vibes in some ways. Public healthcare is also present. Let's say it's more old school charm than cutting edge tech. Think long queues, maybe less modern facilities. But hey, they've got passionate doctors for sure.
I like that. Maybe they'll sing you a lullaby while giving you a shot. Ooh, but seriously, are there private options in Ukraine too? And are they less old school charm?
Private options in Ukraine exist, and yes, generally more modern, faster, and often better equipped. Think of it as upgrading from a Lada to a slightly newer Lada. Still an upgrade. Quality's improving, but it's not quite Western European standards across the board yet.
Perfect analogy, Leo. So, if you get seriously ill in either country, should you just hop on a plane to Germany? Oops, just kidding. Sort of. But are there any specialties where Russia or Ukraine actually shine? Wow.
Well, Mira, dramatic as always. No need for a German airlift for every sniffle. Russia, historically strong in certain areas, think eye surgery, some specialized treatments. Ukraine, good dentists, surprisingly affordable sometimes. But for complex stuff, maybe do your homework and find the best specialists, wherever they may be.
Affordable dentists in Ukraine. Maybe I should go for a dental tourism trip. Get my teeth sparkling white and learn a few Ukrainian phrases. Diyakuwayu, doctor. For my Hollywood smile. But seriously, what about emergency care? If you have a sudden vodka-related incident, whoa.
Vodka-related emergencies in Russia and Ukraine? Never! Emergency care generally available in both. Ambulances exist, hospitals have emergency rooms. Response times variable. In big cities better. Rural areas might be a longer wait. Just like anywhere, really.
So, if you're having a heart attack in a teeny Ukrainian village, maybe not. Oops. Dark humor again? But good to know. Especially for expats, who might end up in more remote areas.
Mira, you're painting a grim picture of rural health emergencies. It's not TH80 bad, but yeah, planning ahead is wise. Health insurance, knowing where the nearest clinic is, learning basic phrases to explain my arm fell off useful stuff.
That's my new favorite phrase. But health insurance, absolutely crucial. Should expats just go private then in both Russia and Ukraine to avoid the free errand LADA upgrade situations?
For expats, private insurance is often the way to go, especially initially. It gives you access to better facilities, English-speaking staff, less bureaucratic hassle. Peace of mind is worth something, right? Plus, dealing with Russian or Ukrainian public healthcare systems without local language skills could be an adventure. Maybe not the fun kind. Ouch.
Not the fun kind of adventure. Definitely. Bureaucracy in medical emergencies sounds like a sitcom waiting to happen. But not in a good way. So, bottom line for expats, healthcare in Russia and Ukraine accessible but quality varies wildly. Is that a fair summary?
Fair summary, Mira. Accessible in theory, quality dependent on where you are, what you pay for, and how lucky you are. Like many things, really. Do your research, get insured, maybe learn a few key medical phrases, and hope you stay healthy. And maybe avoid excessive vodka consumption, just a thought.
Avoid excessive vodka boring. But sensible advice, Leo. Even for me. Okay, healthcare in Russia and Ukraine a bit of a gamble, but manageable, especially if you go private and learn to say health. My arm fell off. In Russian and Ukrainian. Leo. Another topic conquered. Let's move on. Okay, Leo, buckle up, because we're switching gears to talk about something super practical but surprisingly fascinating: transportation. We're diving into the world of getting around in Russia and Ukraine. Think of it as planes, trains, and automobiles Slavic style. Hehehe.
Slavic style, I like it, Mira. Sounds like it could involve a lot of vodka and questionable roads, maybe? Seriously! But seriously, transportation is key. I mean, you can have the most beautiful country in the world, but if it takes you 3 days in a donkey to get from one side to the other, it kind of loses its charm, right?
Androsha, let's be real. I don't know, a whole bunch of Spainess inside it. Wow, so getting around must be an adventure in itself. I'm picturing vast train journeys across Siberia, maybe with bears waving from the windows. Ooh.
Bears on trains. Now that's a visual. But yeah, Russia's size is the first thing that hits you. The Trans-Siberian Railway legendary stuff, right? Though I bet Legroom isn't exactly first class. Imagine being stuck on that for days. You'd probably start speaking fluent Russian just to chat with someone.
Excuse me, Babushka, could you pass the salted fish? And maybe a cushion for my aching behind. Ouch. But seriously, that railway must be incredible. Like a moving hotel, but with more authentic experiences. Aha!
Authentic is one word for it. Maybe character building is another? I've heard stories about those trains. Apparently, you become best friends with your carriage mates, sharing everything from tea to questionable sausages. It's like a social experiment on wheels.
Oh, I love that. A sausage-fueled friendship train. Oh, but what about Ukraine? Is it all about trains there too, or do they have a different vibe? In picturing more? Maybe sunflower yellow buses bouncing through fields?
Sunflowers and bouncing buses poetic, Mira. Ukraine's definitely smaller than Russia, which probably makes getting around a bit less of an epic quest. They've got trains, sure, but I think buses and Marshrutt KS, those little minivans are more the everyday heroes.
Sounds like a dance move. Do the Marshrutt car. Are they those super packed vans where you're practically sitting on someone's lap? Whoa, that could be fun. Or maybe just very, very cozy.
Cozy is definitely one way to put it. Imagine Rushrutt car. You'd be intimately acquainted with your fellow passengers, whether you wanted to be or not.
Personal space becomes a myth. But hey, think of the stories. Remember that time we were all squished together in that Marshrutt? Khan the chicken escaped. Ooh. Travel memories are made of this, right?
Absolutely. And let's not forget the roads themselves. Russia's got vast distances, so I'm guessing road quality is variable. I'm picturing epic road trips in a Lada, bouncing over potholes the size of small cars.
Are we talking modes or more like suggestions of roads? Though, I bet driving through the Russian countryside must be breathtakingly beautiful. Just maybe bring extra tires and a good chiropractor. Ouch.
Chiropractor definitely on the packing list, and maybe a mechanic who specializes in laws. But you're right, the scenery must be incredible. Endless forests, fast plains. Perfect for those dramatic driving montages in movies. Just maybe not at high speed.
Slow and scenic Lada journeys. What about Ukraine's roads? Are they smoother sailing? Or are potholes a pan-Slavic experience?
Well, Ukraine's roads, let's just say they're not exactly Autobahn smooth everywhere. They've been improving, especially around the major cities, but you can still find some rustic stretches, shall we say. Think of it as character building for your car.
Character building for your car. I love it. So both countries offer a unique transportation experience, just in different ways. Russia is epic train journeys and lottie adventures, and Ukraine is Marshrutt cuddles and character building roads. Wow!
Precisely, and for tourists, it's all part of the adventure, right? Embrace the bumpy rides, the packed trains, the unexpected encounters. It's definitely not going to be boring. And hey, at least the stories will be amazing for our podcast.
Forget boring tourist traps. Give me a Marshrutt card any day. Ooh, though, maybe next time we should compare the comfort level of different Marshrutt cards. For science.
Marshrutt car comfort levels. Now there's a podcast episode idea. We could even do a live test. Imagine, Mira and Leo crammed into a Marshrutt car and streaming our comfort assessment. YouTube Gold.
YouTube GOLD. Jet off AI presents Marshrutt Kamehan. Wow. Okay, Leo, I think we have our next travel plan sorted. Just need to find a really, really long Marshrutt car route, and maybe some motion sickness pills. Oops. Alrighty. Let's chat about something super interesting, how easy it is to chat in Russian to Ukraine. You know, like if you suddenly decided to burst into song in the street. Would anyone understand?
Well, Mira, if you burst into song anywhere, the language might be the least of your worries. But yeah, languages, for folks thinking of visiting or moving, it's kinda important, right?
Like, imagine trying to order the most amazing borscht, but you just end up miming a beetroot to a confused waiter. First up, let's talk about what languages are even floating around in these places.
Right. So in Russia, it's pretty much dominated by Russian. It's like trying to find a quiet cafe in Moscow, good luck escaping it. But it's not just Russian, is it?
Russia's HUG, like bigger than my appetite for adventure. And with all that space, you get tons of different languages and dialects sprinkled around, right? Like how many do you think? 1 million. Okay, maybe not 1 million, but a lot.
Not quite 1 million, Mira. Even for you, that's a bit much. But yeah, you've got places with Tatar, Chechen, and all sorts of Siberian languages. It's like a linguistic buffet. though mostly people will be speaking Russian, unless you wander way off the beaten track.
A, a linguistic buffet. I love that. Makes it sound delicious. Ooh. And Ukraine. It's mainly Ukrainian, right? Like, if Russia's a big bear, is Ukraine like a sunflower field of Ukrainian? Am I making sense?
A sunflower field. It'll give you points for imagery, Mira. Yes, Ukrainian is the main squeeze in Ukraine. But historically, and still today, Russian is also widely spoken, especially in the East and South. It's like having the main channels on your TV, both pretty popular.
So, it's not just one flavor. It's like a to scoop ice cream cone of languages. Ooh! Does that mean you can just yell in Russian and Ukrainian and everyone will get you? Or is it a bit more complicated?
Well, yelling in any language might get you some stares, Mira. But yes, in many parts of Ukraine, especially the bigger cities, you can get by speaking Russian. But it's in many parts of Ukraine. But it's also seen as polite and more culturally sensitive to at least try a bit of Ukrainian, you know? Like saying thank you in the local tongue shows you're making an effort.
Good point, Leo. It's like when I travel, I always try to learn hello and thank you in the local language. It's like a magic trick for smiles. So if someone is an English speaker, how easy is it to find someone who understands them in Russia or Ukraine?
English the global lingua franca, supposedly, in the big cities of Russia, especially Moscow and St. Petersburg, you'll find English speakers, particularly in touristy spots, hotels, and businesses catering to foreigners. Younger folks are more likely to have learned it in school, too.
That's good news for us English-speaking adventurers. Oh, so strolling through Red Square and asking for directions in English, totally doable.
Reasonably doable, yes, but everyone to be fluent. Yes, don't expect everyone to be fluent. It's not like Amsterdam where everyone speaks perfect English. You might need to be a bit patient, maybe use gestures, or have a translation up handy. You know, the usual traveler toolkit.
Gestures. My favorite form of international communication. I once tried to mime chicken soup in Italy and ended up looking like I was flapping my arms and clucking like a whale. You get the picture. What about Ukraine and English then?
Ukraine is similar to Russia in terms of English proficiency. In Kyiv and other major cities, you'll find English speakers, again, more so in tourist areas and among younger generations. But outside of those hubs, English isn't as widely spoken. It's not the default second language for everyone.
So in both places, it sounds like knowing a bit of Russian or Ukrainian would be super helpful, right? Like turning on easy mode for your travel adventure. Ooh.
Absolutely, Mira. Learning some basic Russian phrases for Russia, or Ukrainian for Ukraine, will make your life a whole lot easier and richer. It opens doors, shows respect, and avoids those hilarious, but sometimes frustrating, mime situations.
No more chicken clucking for me in Eastern Europe then. So, what about those cultural communication differences? Are Russians super direct, or are Ukrainians more sunflower? Why in their communication style? Am I still on the sunflower thin?
You're really sticking with the sunflowers, Mira. Culturally, both Russians and Ukrainians can be perceived as more direct in their communication compared to, say, some Western cultures. They might get straight to the point, which can sometimes be misinterpreted as bluntness.
Whoa, straight to the point. Like, no beating around the bush. Is that a thing? Beating around the bush? I'm inventing new phrases today. Wow.
Beating around the bush, I like it, Mira. Then yeah, less bush beating. But it's also important to remember that directness isn't necessarily rudeness. It's just a different communication style. And warmth and hospitality are still very much part of both cultures.
Warmth and hospitality. Like being offered 1,000,000 cups of tea and enough food to feed a small army. Emu. Oh, so maybe directness with a side of tea and cake? Sounds like my kind of communication.
Exactly. Directness with a side of generous hospitality. And in Ukraine, you might find Ukrainians can be a little more, let's say, emotionally expressive in conversations. A bit more open with feelings, perhaps.
Ooh, emotionally expressive. Like, if you spill your coffee, they'll gasp dramatically and offer you their handkerchief and a shoulder to cry on? I love it. Ooh.
Maybe not quite that dramatic over spilled coffee, Mira. But yeah, Ukrainians can be quite expressive and passionate in their interactions. It's part of their charm. And Russians, while perhaps seeming more reserved initially, can also be incredibly warm and heartfelt once you get to know them.
So, both are like complicated but delicious linguistic and cultural pastries. You might need to take a few bites to really get the flavor. But it's worth it? Am I stretching this metaphor too far?
Ah, pastries, sunflowers, borscht, you're creating a whole food-based cultural comparison, Mira? But yeah, you're getting the gist. Communication in both Russian and Ukrainian is nuanced. Language learning helps, cultural awareness is key, and a sense of humor always a bonus.
Sense of humor check. Unlimited supply of jokes double check. Okay, I think I'm ready to navigate the language barriers of Russian to Ukraine. Maybe I'll even learn to say beat around the borscht in Russian. Oh,
Yeah, good luck with that, Mira. Dan, for our listeners, maybe start with hello and thank you first. Baby steps. But yeah, language and communication are definitely part of the adventure in both these fascinating countries.
okay, so let's jump into cultural diversity and tolerance. You know, it's like looking at a really complicated family photo album, right? Lots of faces, some smiling, some maybe a little grumpy, but all related in some weird way.
A family photo album is a great way to put it, Mira. Except in this case, some of the family members might be in a bit of a shouting match over who gets the last slice of history pie. But hey, who doesn't love a bit of family drama, especially when it's someone else's?
And when we talk about Russian Ukraine, it's like imagine that photo album is really old, like dusty old, with layers and layers of pictures stuck on top of each other. You peel one back and find something completely different underneath. Wow. So, what do we see when we start peeling back the layers, Leo?
Well, first off, you realize these aren't exactly new countries just popped up yesterday, right? They've both been around the block a few times, collecting different people and cultures like souvenir fridge magnets. Ah, Russia, especially, is like a continent in itself, stretching from Europe to Asia. Like Siberian reindeer herders to folks in bustling Moscow.
Whoa, Siberian reindeer herders! Imagine trying to explain okay to them. But yeah, Russia's HUG. It's like you could drive for days and still be in Russia. Whoa, and with all that space, you gotta get a lot of different groups of people, right? It's not just Russians, is it?
Nope, not at all. Think about it, you've got Tatars, Chechens, Yakutes, Buryates. It's like a United Nations of enthesitis all crammed into one passport. And each group has its own language traditions, maybe even their own quirky sense of humor. Though I bet my jokes might get lost in translation in some of those places.
That fear every time I try to tell a joke in a new country. But Ukraine too. Isn't it more than just Ukrainian? I mean, you hear about Russian speakers. Crimean tacos, it's not just one flavor of ice cream, is it?
Definitely not just vanilla, Mira. More like a Neapolitan, maybe with a slightly melted layer of rocky road on top for complexity. Ukraine has always been a crossroads, geographically and culturally. You've got influences from Poland, from the Ottoman Empire, from Russia, obviously. It's a real melting pot, even if sometimes the ingredients are simmering a bit too intensely.
Simmering intensely, that's putting it mildly, Leo. But it's true that mix can be amazing when it works, right? Like, think about the food, the music, all those different stories mixing together. In theory, it's a recipe for something really rich and interesting.
In theory, yes. In practice, sometimes it's more like a recipe for arguments at the dinner table. Because tolerance, Mira, that's the tricky ingredient, isn't it? Having all these different cultures is one thing, but actually getting along, respecting each other, not, having shouting matches over history pie, that's the real challenge.
Showing matches over history pie. I'm totally stealing that, Leo. But you're right. Tolerance is the key. And I guess, historically, for both Russia and Ukraine, that tolerance spot, it's been a bit up and down, hasn't it? Like a roller coaster. But maybe one that's a bit rickety and scary sometimes. Whoa.
Rickety and scary is a good way to describe it, Mira. Both countries have had periods of, let's say, less than ideal tolerance. Times when certain groups were encouraged to be less visible, less vocal, less themselves. Heh.
A long shadow, definitely. And it's not just history, is it? Even today, you hear about issues. Like, in Russia, I've read about how some minority groups face discrimination, or how LGBT rights, well, let's just say they're not exactly throwing pride parades down Red Square. Oops.
Red Square Pride Parade, now that's an image. But yeah, you're right. Russia officially is multicultural, but the reality on the ground can be nuanced. Let's put it diplomatically. And in Ukraine too, even though there's a push towards more Western values, there are still challenges with things like, xenophobia or discrimination against Roma people. Things like that.
No country gets a perfect score on the tolerance tests, do they? Everyone's got areas to improve. Like that one subject you always struggled with in school. But I guess it's about the direction you're moving in, right? Are things getting better, or not so much?
Exactly, Mira. And that's where it gets really complicated. Because you can point to positive initiatives in both countries, efforts to promote cultural understanding, to celebrate diversity, but then you also see the news, you hear the stories, and you realize there's still a long way to go. It's like 2 steps forward, 1 step sideways, and then accidentally tripping over your own feet.
Tripping over your own feet. That's my specialty, Leo. But it's true. It's not a simple picture, is it? It's not just black and white or even just different shades of gray. It's like a kaleidoscope. Wow, lots of colors, lots of patterns, constantly shifting and changing.
A kaleidoscope is perfect, Mira. And maybe, just maybe, if we keep shaking that kaleidoscope in the right way, we can get it to settle into a pattern that's a bit more harmonious. Less shouting, more sharing that history pie.
More sharing history pie. I like that, Leo. Maybe we should start a global campaign, share your history pie. We could even sell little history pies on Jet Off AI. Oh, think of the possibilities.
History pies on Jet Off AI, now there's a business idea. Maybe we should pivot the whole podcast. Jet Off AI presents history pies and humorous country comparisons. But seriously, Mira, understanding cultural diversity and tolerance, it's not just about stats and policies, is it? It's about people, real people, and how they treat each other every day.
It's about the little things, isn't it? Like, do people smile at each other on the street, even if they look different? Do they help each other out? Do they laugh together? Because laughter, Leo, that's the universal language of tolerance, right?
Laughter is definitely a good start, Mira. Maybe if we could just get everyone in Russia and Ukraine to listen to our podcast and laugh at our jokes, world peace through podcasting. Now if that's an ambitious goal for Jet Off AI.
World peace through podcasting, supported by Jet Off AI. I love it. Let's put that on right now. Wow. But yeah, seriously, it's about people seeing each other as people, not just as labels or stereotypes. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of humor can help break down those walls.
Here's hoping, Mira. Here's hoping. Dang, if not, at least we got some good jokes out of it. And hopefully our listeners on YouTube will give us a like and subscribe, even if we haven't solved world peace today. Baby steps, right?
Our current topic, we compare educational opportunities and language schools into countries. From literacy rates to innovative teaching methods and student programs, it's quite the academic adventure, isn't it, Leo? Ooh.
Academic adventure, Mira. Sounds like we're about to embark on a quest for the Holy Diploma. But seriously, education is key. Unless you're planning to become a professional mime, then maybe not so much.
Oh, come on, Leo. Even mice need education. They have to learn how to dramatically not walk against the wind, right? But yes, for the rest of us, knowing where to get a good education and maybe learn a new language is super important, especially if you're thinking about moving or studying abroad.
True. True. Although, knowing how to mime your way out of a tricky situation could also be a valuable life skill. Imagine being stuck in a foreign country and you've forgotten all your language phrases. Just start miming furiously. People will either understand or think you're having a caffeine withdrawal. Either way, entertainment.
Okay, you've convinced me. Mime school is also important. But back to our countries, let's talk about, say, literacy rates first. It's kind of the foundation of everything, isn't it? Like, can people even read the signs to the language schools?
Well, Mira, last I checked, both Russia and Ukraine are doing pretty well on the literacy front. It's not like we're comparing them to, say, a remote tribe who communicate solely through interpretive dance, although that would be an interesting podcast topic.
Don't even start, Leo. We'll be here all day talking about interpretive dance. But you're right. Both countries have historically valued education, and it shows in their high literacy rates, which is fantastic. And
Yeah, you won't find many folks in Russia or Ukraine who think reading is for nerds. Unless, of course, you're reading tax codes for fun. Then yeah, maybe a bit nerdy. Maybe a bit nerdy. But in general, they get the importance of being able to decipher words, thankfully.
And speaking of deciphering, let's move on to the actual quality of education. Because being able to read is one thing, but what about what you're reading and learning? Are we talking top-notch universities, or just really enthusiastic teachers with calcboards?
Mira, always with the dramatic contrasts. Look, both Russia and Ukraine have some pretty solid universities, especially in certain fields. Think science, engineering, maybe even dramatic mime.
You and your mime obsession. Yeah, for real. Russia, especially, has a long history of strong universities, particularly in science and technology, right? Think space race and all that brain power. Wow.
Absolutely. They didn't just send dogs into space with good looks, Mira. There was some serious brain power behind that K9 Cosmos program. Aha! And Ukraine, while maybe not as globally famous for its universities, also has a decent higher education system, especially in certain technical fields.
Right. And it's not just about universities, is it? It's also about the whole educational system, from primary schools up. Are they using, like, abacus and slide rules? Or are they embracing the 21st century with, dare I say, interactive whiteboards? Oh.
Interactive whiteboards. Wow, Mira, you're living in the future. Look, I'm sure some schools are still rocking the calcboard chic, but both countries are definitely moving towards more modern teaching methods. Though, I bet you can still find an abacus in some dusty corner for that authentic old school vibe.
Calcboard chic. I love it. But seriously, are they encouraging innovation in teaching? Are teachers just lecturing from dusty textbooks? Or are they trying to make learning, dare I say it, fun? Well,
Fun and learning in the same sentence? Blasphemy. Just kidding. I'm sure there are teachers in both countries trying to spice things up. You know, ditching the monotone roam for something slightly more engaging. Though, let's be honest, fun in education is a relative term. For some, fun is surviving a math test.
so true, Leo. So true. Surviving a math test is an adventure. But what about student exchange programs? Are they sending students off to explore the world and bring back, like, international knowledge and maybe some cool souvenirs?
Exchange programs. Well, let's just say the geopolitical climate has been, shall we say, dynamic in that region recently. So, student exchanges might be a tad complicated at the moment. Oops.
Right, geopolitics. Always messing with the fun stuff. Oops. Well, maybe in better times they have more exchange opportunities. Let's hope for that. But, hey, even without exchanges, you can still learn languages in the country, right? Yeah, and that's where language schools come in.
Bingo, Mira? Language schools. The unsung heroes of international communication. Both Russia and Ukraine have language schools where you can learn Russian or Ukrainian, respectively. Or, you know, mime, if you're still stuck on that.
Yeah, But yes, language schools are key. If someone wants to immerse themselves in the culture, learning the language is a must. And are these schools, like, good? Are they teaching you slang and how to order borscht properly? Important stuff.
Slang and borscht ordering 101. I like your curriculum, Mira. I like your curriculum, Mira. I'm sure the quality varies, like anywhere else, but you can definitely find reputable language schools in major cities in both countries. Whether they teach you borscht etiquette, I can't guarantee.
Borscht etiquette should be a mandatory course. Seriously. Are there good textbooks? Online tools, language partners, all just to help you learn? Or are you stuck with? Like a dusty phrase book from the 1980 seconds? Oops.
Dusty phrase book. Classic. No, they've moved beyond that, Mira. Mostly, you'll find modern textbooks, online resources, language exchange partners, the whole shebang. The internet has kind of revolutionized language learning, you know? Wow!
Thank goodness for the internet. Imagine trying to learn a language just with a dusty phrase book. You'd be asking for directions to the nearest payphone. But what about the cost of education in language schools? Is it going to break the bowl? Is it relatively affordable?
Cost-wise, compared to Western Europe or North America, education and language schools in both Russia and Ukraine are generally more affordable, which is a definite plus. You might even have some rubles or hryvnias left over to buy borscht.
Excellent. Fund. So, overall, it sounds like both countries offer decent educational opportunities and places to learn the local languages, even if the current situation adds a layer of complexity. Is that a fair summary, Mr. Sharp-Eyed Traveler?
Fair summary, Ms. Never-ending joke machine. Both Russia and Ukraine have a history of valuing education, and while there are definitely nuances in the current landscape, the potential for learning and expanding your mind is still there. Just maybe check the travel advisories before you book your plane ticket. And maybe learn a little mime just in case.
Leo, seriously. Oh, there you have it. Educational opportunities and language schools in Russia and Ukraine. Maybe a little complicated right now, but still educational. If you like this episode, you know what to do, like and subscribe. And for more insights and maybe less mum talk, check out Jedolfei.
Don't forget to leave your questions and comments below. And if you have any mime-related questions for Mira, now's your chance. Big thanks to Jedolfei for making this podcast possible. Wow. Until next time, folks. Ugh.
Okay, Leo. Let's move on to our next point on the compass, shall we? Or should I say thermometer? Because we're diving into climate and seasonal conditions in Russia and Ukraine. Get ready for a temperature tango.
Temperature tango? Is that anything like the weather waltz? Because it is. I'm pretty sure Russia's leading with a very four-step. Think more like a Siberian stomp than a tango, maybe.
Okay, maybe more of a robust Russian step then. But seriously, the climate difference is HUG, right? Russia's like continent-sized. You've got everything from near-Arctic tundra to almost subtropical bits. It's like a weather buffet.
Weather buffet? More like a weather endurance distance in parts. Imagine telling someone in Siberia, oh, just pop outside for a bit of fresh air. They do look at you like you suggested a polar bear spot, eh? Ouch.
True. I mean, when you think Russian winter, you think, well, you think winter. Capital W, capital I, capital I. Capital in Russia can actually get quite warm in the summer, right? Like almost beach weather.
Almost beach weather if you're a polar bear on vacation. Okay. Warm in Russia is like mildly chilly in Spain. And even their warm summers can be surprisingly short. It's like the sun takes a peek, then goes, nope, too much effort, and hides again.
Leo, you're so dramatic. But you're right, Ukraine is definitely milder overall. It's got more of a temperate continental climate, right? Proper for seasons, but without the extreme Siberian chill factor.
Exactly. Ukraine's climate is like that friend who's always reasonable. You know, not too hot, not too cold, just there. Reliable seasons, predictable weather. Less dramatic, maybe, but definitely easier to plan a picnic, or life in general.
Yes, Ukraine sounds perfect for picnics. Imagine beautiful sunflower fields in the summer. Perfect picnic backdrop. Russia maybe a snow picnic. Build an ice table.
So I think of the encounter there. Sounds bracing, and possibly frostbite-inducing. But hey, think of the Instagram opportunities. Authentic Russian winter picnic, bring your thermal underwear. Maybe jet off, I could even offer a Siberian survival kit for such adventures.
Siberian survival kit by Jet Alfei. I love it. We could include thermal socks. A hat that looks like a bear. And maybe a little flask of a hot tea. For warming up, of course.
Of course. Hot tea. Wink wink nudge nudge. But back to climate. Ukraine has got those lovely black earth soils, which are amazing for agriculture, partly thanks to its more forgiving climate, right?
Aha! Exactly. Ukraine is known as the breadbasket of Europe. All those golden wheat fields waving in the summer breeze, very picturesque. Russia, well, parts of Russia are great for growing strong character.
Growing strong character. I like that, Mira. Russian winter guaranteed to build character of frostbite. One of those. But yeah, Ukraine's climate is definitely more agriculturally friendly. Less permafrosts, more perma-growing season.
Perma-growing season? I think you just invented a climate term, Leo. We should get that trademarked. But seriously, thinking about seasons, Ukraine probably has a much longer and warmer spring and autumn too. Those in-between seasons are so lovely.
Definitely. Think mild springs, golden autumns in Ukraine. Think slightly less brutal winter transition in Russia. For some parts of Russia, spring is just a 2-week period where the snow turns into slightly /IER snow.
Learn. Come on. You can't be THAT bad. Surely Russian summers are amazing. Long daylight hours. Warm evenings. Imagine those white nights in street. Petersburg. Magical.
Magical, yes. Warm relatively. Long daylight hours? Absolutely. You can practically have a midnight picnic. Just maybe bring a jacket. And maybe some mosquito repellent. Those white nights mosquitoes are legendary. Wow.
Maybe Ukrainian summer picnics are still winning. But still, both countries have such distinct seasons. It must be beautiful to see the landscape change so dramatically throughout the year.
Dramatic is definitely the word. Especially in Russia. Things start quite snowstack-esque, transforming into slightly less stark snowstack-esque. Okay, in teasing. But the seasonal changes are definitely pronounced. You really feel the seasons there. In Ukraine too, of course, but maybe with a bit less existential dread in winter.
Existential dread. Leo. But I get what you mean. Maybe Ukraine is more of a gentle seasonal shift, and Russia is like a seasonal roller coaster. Ups and downs, chills and slightly less chills.
Seasonal roller coaster? Yes, that's perfect, Mir. Ukraine is a gentle carousel, Russia's a roller coaster designed by someone who really Ariel Elweiler's winter, and possibly hates sunshine.
So for climate and seasons, If you love dramatic weather and want to experience a real copper winter, Russia is your place. If you prefer milder seasons, lovely springs and autumns, and more picnic-friendly weather, maybe Ukraine wins.
I think you nailed it, Mira. It really depends on your personal weather preference. Do you want a gentle weather hug or a full-on seasonal smack in the face? Both are experiences. Ah.
A weather hug or a seasonal snack in the face. I love it. Well, listeners, hopefully that clears up the climate situation. And if you want to plan your weather-appropriate trip, don't forget to check out Jet Off AI for all your travel needs. Whether you're repacking for Siberia or a Ukrainian summer, we've got you covered. Alright, Leo, speaking of cultural vibes, let's move on to something super important. Something that fuels all our adventures and maybe even our arguments: food. I'm talking about food culture and nutritional alternative in Russia and Ukraine.
So I think that we can talk about food, you say? Now you're talking my language, Mira. Or should I say, our languages? Trying to decide between Russian and Ukrainian cuisine is like choosing between two types of delicious, slightly mysterious, and definitely hearty comfort food.
And you know, when you travel, food isn't just about filling your stomach, right? Oh? It's like a history lesson you can taste, a culture you can chew on. So let's dive into the culinary worlds of Russia and Ukraine. Where should we even start? Maybe with the basics, like staple foods?
Basics, yes. Man, in Russia, you can't escape bread, right? It's like, if there's life, bread is Russian life. Black bread, bread with a story, bread with a story, bread with a story, bread with a ski passed down through generations. Wow, it's everywhere. And potatoes, of course. Potatoes are like the reliable friend who's always there for you, no matter what.
Oh, potatoes. Absolute win too. Potatoes are practically royalty. But you know what else is huge in Ukraine? It's grains, especially wheat. Think about all those golden fields of wheat waving in the Ukrainian breeze. It's like the country is saying, hey, we're gonna feed you. And then there's buckwheat, which is super healthy and also super tasty, if you know how to cook it right.
Buckwheat, the unsung hero. Russians love their buckwheat too. We call it grekka. It's like the healthy cousin of potatoes, always trying to get invited to the party. And speaking of healthy, both countries are big on seasonal eating, right? Summer is berry season. Autumn is mushroom season. It's like nature's own nutritional calendar.
Seasonal eating. I love that. Ooh. It's like nature is saying, here's what's good for you now. And in Ukraine, summer's definitely berry time. Strawberries, blueberries, whoa. You can find them in every market. And people make V or NYKY with berries. Compotes, jams. It's a berry explosion. And Dawson, you're right. Mushroom soup.
Mushroom soup. Ah, Russian mushroom soup, or gribnoy soup, is legendary. Especially after a long walk in the autumn woods, you come home and bam, hot, fragrant mushroom soup. It's like a hug in a bowl. But let's not forget about cabbage, Mira. Cabbage is like the workhorse of both cuisines, isn't it?
Cabbage, the unsung vegetable superstar. In Ukraine, we have kapusta and everything. Cabbage rolls, KPS and YAK soup, sauerkraut. It's like if you're not eating cabbage, are you even Ukrainian? Antork is like the ultimate food battleground between Russia and Ukraine.
Borscht! Whoa, the red beet battlefield. Oh, Russians will tell you borscht is Russian. Ukrainians will tell you it's Ukrainian. It's like the culinary version of who invented the radio. But seriously, both Russian and Ukrainian borscht are amazing. Beets, cabbage, potatoes, meat. It's a vitamin bomb in a bowl.
It is a vitamin bomb. And so comforting. Oh, Ukrainian borscht, of course, is the real borscht. Just kidding. But seriously, we often add beans and sometimes even prunes for a little sweetness. And we serve it with smetana. Of course, sour cream is a must. And pampush KY, those fluffy garlic buns. Oh, I'm getting hungry just talking about it.
Pampush KY, yes. Those garlic clouds are deliciousness. Russians also love sour cream or smetana with everything. It's like the universal condiment. And we have our own version of fluffy buns, pie, with all sorts of fillings, cabbage, meat, potatoes, potatoes, each potatoes, even sweet ones with apples. It's like a portable comfort food package.
Piers H. Portable comfort food, I love that. Oh, Ukrainian pyrishki are pretty similar, and just as delicious. And you know what else is similar? Vera NYKY and PL Menai. Those dumplings are like cousins from different sides of the border.
Dumpling diplomacy! Russian PL men are usually smaller, meat-filled and boiled. They're like little pockets of meaty joy. And we eat them with... Yes, it's smetana. Or vinegar, or mustard, or all three if you're feeling adventurous.
And Ukrainian VRNYKY are bigger, and they can have all sorts of fillings. Potatoes, cabbage, cheese, cherries, berries. Wow! It's like a dumpling rainbow. And we also eat them with smetana or fried onions or butter. Basically, anything delicious. It's like dumplings are a universal language of delicious.
Universal language of deliciousness. Totally. And speaking of universal, both countries are getting more into nutritional alternatives, right? Like vegetarian and vegan food. It's not just meat and potatoes anymore, is it?
Definitely not. Especially in big cities like Kyiv and Moscow. You can find all sorts of vegetarian and vegan options now. Whoa! Vegan borscht, vegan VRNYKY. It's like the traditional cuisine is getting a modern, plant-based makeover.
Plant-based makeover, I like that. Moscow definitely has a growing vegan scene. And you know, even traditional Russian cuisine has naturally vegetarian dishes, like salads with pickled vegetables, or mushroom dishes during fasting periods. So it's not a completely new concept? Just a rediscover, maybe?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And you know, with all the fresh produce available in summer, those cuisines are naturally quite healthy and full of vitamins. It's not all heavy comfort food all the time.
True. Summer salads with fresh herbs, berries, and vegetables. It's like a taste of sunshine on your plate. And both countries are also big on preserving food for winter, right? Pickling, fermenting, canning. It's like preparing for a culinary apocalypse.
Culinary apocalypse, exactly. Pickled cobras, pickled tomatoes, pickled cabbage. Oops. Pickling is a national sport in both countries, I think. It's like, winter is coming, let's pickle everything. Unfermented foods are so good for you too.
So I think that we can conquer that. Fermented foods are the superheroes of the gut. Sauerkraut, kimchi-style cabbage. Okay, maybe kimchi is more Korean, but you get the idea. Both cuisines have a long tradition of using fermentation and flavor, and now we know it's super healthy too.
Exact, our grandmothers were food scientists all along. Wow. And you know, even with all the similarities, there are regional differences too, right? Food in Siberia is going to be different from food in southern Ukraine, for example.
Oh, absolutely. Siberia is all about hearty, warming food to survive the brutal winters. Think lots of meat dumplings, and preserved vegetables. Whereas southern Ukraine, closer to the Black Sea, has more Mediterranean influences, maybe more fresh vegetables and fruits, and seafood. It's like two different culinary worlds within the same region.
Culinary worlds within worlds. I love that. Oh, and food is so tied to traditions and festivals too, right? Easter bread, Christmas coutier. Food isn't just food, it's part of our celebrations.
Food is celebration. Yes, Russian Easter kulik, that tall, sweet bread is a must. And Pascha, that sweet cheese pyramid, it's like Easter isn't Easter without them. And Christmas is coutier too, a sweet grain porridge. It's like food brings people together, especially during holidays.
Ukrainian Easter Paskay is also amazing. And we have kutie for Christmas Eve supper. And you know, for Ukrainians, kutie is more than just a dish. It's like a symbol of remembrance for ancestors. Food really is deeply connected to our culture and history.
Deeply connected, totally. So, if someone wants to explore the food, culture, and nutritional alternatives in Russian Ukraine, where should they start, Mira? Besides booking a flight, of course.
First, watch our podcast on YouTube, of course. Like and subscribe, people. But seriously, start with trying borscht, vereniklenisek, and some good black bread. Go to local markets, try seasonal fruits and vegetables. And don't be afraid to ask locals for recommendations. People in both countries are usually super proud of their food and happy to share.
Definitely ask locals. They'll lead you to the hidden gems, the best little cafes and markets. And check out Jet Off Fair for travel tips, of course. We're here to help you plan your adventures. Maybe pack some stretchy pants, just in case.
Stretchy pants are essential. Okay, Leo, I think we've given our listeners a good taste of Russian and Ukrainian food, culture, and nutritional alternatives. Ready to move on to our next topic, or are you suddenly craving borscht?
Suddenly craving borscht, maybe. But duty calls. Let's keep going, Mira, and maybe afterwards we can find some virtual borscht online. Or even better, plan a real food tour. Whoa, powered by Jet Off, eh?
Alright, Leo, buckle up, because we are about to dive deep into something seriously fascinating, the historical, cultural, and artistic vibes of Russia and Ukraine. Think ancient empires, stunning art, and enough tradition to fill a museum. Or two. Ooh.
Museums, you say. Sounds dusty, Mira, but okay, I'm in. Let's see if we can make history and culture sound less like homework and more like a surprisingly funny travel brochure. Historical, cultural, artistic. It's like a sophisticated word salad.
Leo, you're kidding me. But you're right. It can sound a bit academic. Trust me, when you scratch the surface of Russian Ukraine, it's like uncovering a treasure chest bursting with stories. Think epic tales, dramatic paintings, and music that can make your soul sing. Wow.
Okay, treasure chest. Soul singing, you're laying it on thick, Mira. But I get your point. Both these countries are like, historically loaded. I mean, you can't swing a cat without hitting some ancient monument or a place where something really dramatic happened, right? Though, please, for the sake of animal lovers, let's not swing any cats.
Yeah? Always with the cat jokes. But yes, historically loaded is an understatement. We're talking centuries of empires clashing, cultures mixing, and art movements blooming. Think about it from the grandeur of the Tsars to the vibrant folk traditions. It's a wild ride.
Grandeur of the Tsars, cue the dramatic organ music and images of gold-plated everything. But seriously, you can't talk about Russia without mentioning the Romanovs and all that opulent stuff. It's like history, but make it fashion, or at least make it really, really expensive.
Expensive fashion history. I love it. And Ukraine's got its own incredible historical threads woven in there too, you know. It's not just a side note to Russia's story. Think Cossacks, vibrant folk art, and a really strong sense of their own identity that's been forged through centuries of, shall we say, interesting times.
Interesting times, you're being diplomatic, Mira. Interesting like a roller coaster that's also on fire. But yeah, the Cossacks. Those guys were like the original action heroes, right? Swashbuckling, horse riding, fiercely independent Hollywood needs to make a movie about them. Stat. Wow.
Right? Cossacks Cinematic Universe, coming soon to a YouTube channel near you. But beyond the action heroes, there's this incredible depth to Ukrainian culture. Think about their folk music, those soulful songs, the intricate embroidery, the painted eggs. It's all so rich and meaningful.
Painted eggs? Are we talking like super fancy Easter eggs? Because I'm picturing something really elaborate now, like Fabergé level of extravaganza. But yeah, folk art is cool. It's like the soul of a nation poured into everyday objects.
You're on fire today, Leo. And yes, Ukrainian Pasenki, those intricately decorated Easter eggs art. But it's not just eggs. Think about the vibrant embroidery. No, with carvings, it's all bursting with color and symbolism. Wow.
Symbolism. Now we're getting artsy fartsy. But I dig it. It's like every pattern, every color tells a story. It's way more interesting than just slapping some paint on a canvas and calling it modern art. If you ask me. Though, don't get me started on modern art.
Oh, Leo, you're such a tease. But you're right. There's a powerful storytelling aspect to both Russian and Ukrainian folk art. And then you look at their classical arts, ballet, opera. Literature, both countries have given the world absolute giants. Wow.
Ballet and opera, okay. I'm picturing the two's really dramatic singing. Not exactly my usual Saturday night. But you can't deny the Russian ballet, right? Swan Lake, the Nutcracker, those are classics for a reason. It's like they invented graceful drama.
Perfectly put, Leo. And Ukraine's got its own ballet traditions. And opera too. Plus think about their literature. Gogol. Bulgakov writers who could blend the real and the surreal in such incredible ways. Aha!
Gogol and Bulgakov, okay, now you're name dropping some literary heavyweights. Impressed. Mira? Though, I mostly know Gogol from that one story about the nose that runs away. Seriously, you knows? That's some next level weirdness.
That's Gogol in a nutshell. That's Gogol in a nutshell. And think about Ukrainian literature too. Shevchenko. Lesya Ukrainka poets and writers who captured the spirit of the nation, often in times of struggle. Powerful stuff. Wow.
Powerful stuff indeed. It's like art becomes a weapon. Or at least, a really strong voice. And I guess when you've got a history as complicated as this region, you need those voices to be loud and clear.
Art has a voice. Art has a voice. Art has resistance. Art as a way to preserve culture and identity. It's all there, woven into the historical and cultural fabric of both Russia and Ukraine. And it's incredibly moving when you start to see it all connect.
Moving okay? You almost got me feeling sentimental, Mira. But in all seriousness, you're right. There's a lot to unpack when you look at the historical, cultural, and artistic values of Russia and Ukraine. It's not just pretty pictures and old buildings, it's about the emotions they evoke, and the people they represent.
Stories, emotions, people, that's the heart of it, isn't it? And that's what makes exploring these cultures so rewarding. Whether it's through music, painting, literature, or just wandering through an old city and soaking it all in. Ooh.
Wandering through old cities now, that sounds more like my speed. Less dusty museums, more quirky street cafes, and maybe some street art thrown in for good measure. Hey, I'm starting to see the appeal of this whole historical, cultural, artistic thing. It's like the backstory to the present day.
The backstory that makes the present so much richer and more meaningful. And hopefully, this little chat has given our listeners a taste of just how much there is to discover in the historical, cultural, and artistic worlds of Russia and Ukraine.
Hopefully. And if not, well, at least we try to make history sound less boring than history class. And if you want to dive deeper into all this culture stuff, maybe check out Jet Off AI. I bet they've got some articles or something. Just a thought.
Great idea, Leah. Jet Off AI is definitely the place to go for more cultural explorations. And hey, if you're enjoying this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. It helps us keep bringing you these sophisticated word salads, as Leo calls them.
Hey, sophisticated word salads on my brain now. But yeah, like Mira said, hit that like button, subscribe, all that jazz. And maybe leave a comment telling us what your favorite historical, cultural, or artistic thing about Russia or Ukraine is. Virtue, artists.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you. And thanks for joining us on this cultural adventure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep laughing, and keep those minds and hearts open. Bye for now.
Later, folks. And remember, history doesn't have to be a snooze fest. Sometimes it's even, dare I say, kinda funny. See ya.
Alright, Leah, let's dive into nature. I'm so excited for this topic because honestly, nature is like the original influencer, right? Always stunning, never boring, and totally filter-free. Ooh!
Filter-free, yes, Mira, except for the smog in some industrial regions, but we'll get to that.
Imagine a bear doing yoga by a Siberian lake. Speaking of Siberia, Russia's just HUG. Look, ridiculously huge. You could get lost for days and just stumble upon more trees. Wow, it's like nature just went wild and said, let's make it BIG.
Big and mostly empty, Mira. Think of it as nature's attempt at minimalism. Less people, more space. You know, for existential pondering or running from those bears you mentioned.
Think of Lake Baikal. The deepest Lake Baikal. The deepest lake in the world. It's so clear. You can practically see to the Earth's core. Maybe we'll find some friendly lake monsters during synchronized swimming. Ooh!
Synchronized swimming lake monsters. Sounds about as likely as finding decent coffee in Siberia before 1990th. Baikal is impressive, I'll give you that. Though, let's be honest. Most people will see it on a postcard rather than in person.
Remote. Yes. But imagine the adventure. Like a real-life quest. And then there are the Ural Mountains, stretching across Russia like a giant sleepy dragon. Maybe they have hidden treasure?
Hidden treasure. Probably mostly rocks and disappointment for gold seekers. The Urals are there. They divide Europe and Asia, mostly by being a long line of hills. Not exactly the Alps, are they?
Hey, hills can be beautiful too. Think of rolling green hills, wildflowers, maybe a cute little gnome village. Okay, maybe not gnomes, but definitely charming. Ooh, and Russia has volcanoes. Kamchatka Peninsula is like a fiery wonderland.
Fiery wonderland. Yes. If your idea of a vacation involves potential lava flows and breathing volcanic fumes. Kamchatka is spectacular if you're into the end of the world aesthetic. Plus, getting there is like a mini quest in itself. Did I mention Ramon?
But think of the photos. Volcanoes, hot springs, maybe even some fire-breathing pigeons. It's also dramatic and exciting. And then, there's Ukraine. It might be smaller, but it packs a punch too. Wow.
Smaller? Yes. And less likely to have you eaten by a bear. Ukraine is more manageable nature. Less epic wilderness, more pleasant countryside stroll.
Pleasant strolls are lovely. Imagine walking along the Black Sea coast in Ukraine, feeling the sea breeze, maybe finding some seashells shaped like tiny pirate hats. The coastlines are so beautiful.
Seashells, yes. And maybe some slightly questionable beach vendors. The Black Sea coast is nice enough, though it's more pebbles than pristine than in many places. Still, better than staring at endless Siberian taiga, I guess.
But the taiga's magical. It's like a giant green carpet. Okay, maybe a bit scratchy, but still. Ukraine has the Carpathian Mountains, which are like cozy, welcoming mountains. Imagine hiking there and finding a hidden waterfall. Ooh.
Cozy mountains, yes. Perfect for a gentle afternoon hike followed by a nap. Not exactly scaling Everest, are we? The Carpathians are pretty, in a picturesque village postcard kind of way.
Sometimes you need calming nature. And Ukraine has the Dnieper River, flowing majestically through the country. Imagine a boat trip, watching the scenery drift by, maybe spotting a water sprite or two.
Water sprites? More likely to spot some industrial runoff. Let's be realistic, Mira. The Dnieper is a river, yes, and it flows. Functionally, it's quite important. Aesthetically, it's a river. Rivers exist.
Neo, you're being such a nature grump. Rivers are vital. They're the veins of the earth. And Ukraine has these amazing plains, stretching as far as the eye can see. Fields of sunflowers waving in the breeze. So cheerful. Oh,
Sunflowers, yes, very Instagrammable. Miles and miles of yellow. Good for agriculture, I guess. Less good for, say, escaping a sudden existential crisis. Give me a Siberian for a steady day for that.
but sunflowers are happy flowers. They're like nature's smiley faces. And those Ukrainian plains, they're so vast and open, you can feel the sky all around you. It's free. Wow.
Freeing? Or just flat? Depends on your definition of freedom, I suppose. Personally, I prefer my nature with a bit more verticality. Mountains, canyons, maybe a moderately active volcano. Just for kicks.
I love the open plains, the rolling hills, the cheerful coasts. You like the dramatic, the wild, the potentially dangerous. Both Russia and Ukraine have incredible natural beauty in their own ways, right? Even if one is the-filled and the other is sunflower-filled. Boom!
Mare-filled, sunflower-filled dap descriptions, actually. Both countries have nature, yes. One is a vast, slightly terrifying wilderness. The other is a more domesticated landscape. Take your pick, depending on your tolerance for bears and your need for sunflowers. And maybe check out Jet-Off AI for travel tips, just in case you decide to wrestle a Beria.
Jet off I could totally help you plan your bear wrestling trip, Leo. Or maybe just a nice sunflower viewing tour in Ukraine for me. Either way, nature wins, right? Either way, nature wins, right? Don't forget to like and subscribe if you love nature as much as we do. You can find this podcast on YouTube too. And leave a comment telling us which landscape you prefer. Our current topic, we compare sports, activity, and adventure options into countries. From celebrated national sports to daring outdoor pursuits and active lifestyles, let's jump right in. Oh, I'm already picturing myself doing some crazy winter sports in Russia.
Winter sports in Russia? Huh? Mira, you on winter sports in Russia? Mira, your idea of adventure was finding a cafe with the strongest coffee. But alright, let's see. Russia and Ukraine. Sports and adventure? Sounds like we're about to compare bears wrestling versus sarcastic dancing marathons.
Oh, yeah. You will me. I can be adventurous. Remember that time I tried to learn snowboarding? Maybe I mostly just sat in the snow, but it was experience. But seriously, Russia's massive, right? Think of all the space for winter sports. Like imagine cross-country skiing across Siberia. Wow, that's adventure.
Cross-country skiing across Siberia? Mira, that's not adventure. That's survival training. You need more than just skis. You need a survival guide, a GPS, and maybe a therapist on standby for when you start talking to the snow. But yeah, Russia's big, sir. Naturally, they've got the space for it. Ice hockey's huge there, right?
Ice hockey's like national pride in Russia. And figure skating. Ooh, they are amazing at figure skating. I always get mesmerized watching them glide on the ice. It's like art meets athleticism. And then there's Ukraine. What comes to mind for Ukraine? Football, maybe. Football, maybe.
Football for Ukraine, definitely. And they're pretty decent at boxing too, aren't they? The Klitschko brothers ring a bell. Whoa. Though I'm not sure if boxing counts as a relaxing activity unless you're into stress relief by punching things. But yeah, Ukraine has a solid sports culture too, just maybe not as romantically winter-themed as Russia.
True. Maybe Siberia in winter is a bit much for my first adventure podcast recommendation. But think about the Russian mountains though. Like the Caucasus Mountains for skiing and snowboarding. That sounds amazing and slightly less survival-wide than Siberia. Plus, imagine the views.
Caucasus Mountains, okay? That's a bit more holiday brochure than epic survival documentary. Fair point, Mira. And Ukraine has the Carpathian Mountains, right? For hiking and maybe some less extreme skiing? Less chance of frostbite, perhaps. Though knowing you, Mira, you'd probably find a way to get frostbite even in July.
Hey, I resent that. But yes, Carpathons in Ukraine are beautiful for hiking. Imagine summer hiking there, breathing in the fresh mountain air. Oh, and Ukraine also has the Black Sea coast for water sports. Think of all the beaches and maybe some sailing. That sounds lovely.
Black Sea Coast sounds nice, you'll give you that. Sailing. As long as you don't expect me to do any actual sailing. I'm more of a captain's hand-decker kind of sailor. But yeah, water sports in Ukraine could be fun. Maybe some windsurfing could be fun. Maybe some windsurfing or just paddling around gently without risking capsizing.
Paddling around gently, typical Leo adventure. But, hey, adventure comes in all shapes and sizes, right? And speaking of different sizes, Russia's masses, so they probably have everything from extreme sports to extreme chess. Is that a thing?
Extreme chess in Russia. Now you're talking my language. Imagine chess boxing, but with ice skates on a frozen lake in Siberia. Aha, that's a YouTube video waiting to happen. But seriously, yeah, Russia's got the space for all sorts of outdoor activities from hiking and climbing to whitewater rafting and bear wrestling. Just kidding, mostly.
Oh, wrestling? They're wrestling. But I bet they have some really cool, unique Russian sports or activities we don't even know about. Like, maybe competitive ballet playing? Or synchronized snow shoveling?
Competitive balyalak playing, synchronized... Mir, your imagination is running wilder than a Siberian husky in a storm. But you might be onto something. They probably do have some unique local sports. In Ukraine too, for that matter? Cossack martial arts? Maybe some kind of folk games we haven't heard of?
Cossack martial arts. That sounds intense and awesome. Maybe we should try that, Leo. For our next podcast episode, we could learn Cossack martial arts and compare it to a Russian Sambo. Is Sambo Russian?
Sambo is Russian, yes. And Cossack martial arts, Mira, are you suggesting we actually do martial arts? Live on camera? For YouTube? Boobs! I think I just pulled a muscle just thinking about it. But okay, for the sake of content, maybe a very gentle introduction. Emphasis on very gentle.
Gentle Cossack martial arts for Leo. But seriously, both countries seem to have a lot to offer in terms of activities, whether it's extreme adventures or more relaxed stuff. It really depends on what you're into, right? Like, if you love winter sports, Russia is your playground. If you prefer hiking and beaches, maybe Ukraine.
Exactly. Russia for the adrenaline junkies who laugh in the face of frostbite, and Ukraine for those who prefer their adventures with a side of sunshine and slightly warmer temperatures. Though, let's be honest, we'd probably just end up in a cafe in both places comparing coffee strengths.
Hey, cafe hopping is an activity. A very important activity, especially when you're fueling up for podcasting. And don't forget, all you listeners can check out Jet Off AI for more travel inspiration. Maybe even for your own sports and adventure trip.
Jet Off AI, yes, the place to plan your gentle paddling adventures and extreme coughing expeditions. But seriously, for real travel tips and info, Jet Off AI is the place to go. And for more of our athletic podcasting, stay tuned to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed our strenuous mental workout.
Mental workout. Love it, Leo. And if you have any amazing sports or adventure stories from Russia or Ukraine, share them in the comments. We'd love to hear them. Whoa, maybe we can even try some of your suggestions. Leo, are you listening?
Did someone say suggestions? As long as they don't involve actual physical exertion, I'm all ears. But yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments on YouTube. We're always looking for inspiration, and maybe some easier activities for Mira to try.
Easier activities. But I'm adventurous. Just selectively adventurous. But yes, comment away. And until next time, stay active or at least stay caffeinated. Bye everyone.
Stay caffeinated, yes. That's the key to all adventure. From the Sharp-Eyed Traveler at Jet Off AI Studios, goodbye and try not to get frostbite wherever you are.
Our current topic, we compare nightlife and entertainment venues into countries. From electric clubs to captivating theaters and festive events. We reveal their vibrant scenes Oh, sounds like a party already, doesn't it, Leo? I'm ready to put on my dancing shoes just thinking about it.
Mira, you'd put on dancing shoes to go to the grocery store. But all right, nightlife and entertainment in Russian Ukraine. Let's see if it's more than just vodka and sad accordions, shall we? Though, to be fair, sad accordions can be quite entertaining in their own way.
Oh, come, Leo. You're always such a tease. I bet even you secretly enjoy a good accordion serenade. But seriously, I've heard amazing things about the nightlife in both countries. Think Dazzle and Ballet in Russia, and then maybe super cool underground music scenes in Ukraine. Wow, it's like a cultural cocktail.
Cultural cocktail, eh? More like a cultural shot of something strong. Okay, so Russia, classic stuff, right? Think grand theaters, opera houses that look like they were designed for tsars, and ballet dancers who can probably leap over buildings. It's all very dramatic.
Dramatic is good. Dramatic is good, eh? It's like stepping into a fairy tale, Leo. Oh, imagine getting all dressed up and going to the Bolshoi. It'd probably try to curtsy to everyone, even the ushers. Though I might trip in my heels. Ooh.
You trip in flip-flops, Mira. But yeah, Bolshoi, Marashnisky, these are legendary places. If you're into high culture and want to feel fancy, Russia's got you covered. Just be prepared to pay Azar's ransom for a good seat.
Worth it for the experience, right? It's like investing in memories. Plus, think of the Instagram photo. Wow, Mira at the Bolshoi feeling like a ballerina, minus the actual ballet skills. But what about something a bit more you know me? Less tiaras, more tambourines. Boo.
Tambourines? Are you planning a one-woman band, Mira? Well, for something less Swan Lake and more Swan Dive into a mosh pit, Ukraine might be your place. Kyiv and Odessa apparently have place. Think underground electronic music, add your vibes, and maybe fewer shambles.
Underground electronic music? Yes, that's yes. My kind of chandelier-free zone. I can picture myself dancing until sunrise, maybe even learning some cool new moves. Though, my cool moves usually involve accidentally bumping into people. Oops.
Your cool moves are legendary for their unpredictability, Mira. But yeah, Ukraine, especially before recent events, was known for its buzzing nightlife. Apparently, Kyiv had this whole contrabass scene, which sounds like something out of a spy movie, but was actually just cool music.
Sounds so mysterious and exciting. Like, are we talking secret passwords and hidden basements? Wow, I'm already imagining myself as a secret agent, infiltrating the coolest clubs, all in the name of dancing.
More like infiltrating the Buffett line, Mira. But yeah, maybe less spy movie, more just cool underground clubs. Think Berlin Wein with a slightly Eastern European twist. And probably cheaper drinks, which is always a bonus.
Cheaper drinks, Sandy, cool, underground vibes. Leo, you're selling me on Ukraine already? Ooh, it's like a hidden gem of nightlife. Maybe we should plan a trip and investigate. For podcast research purposes, of course.
Podcast research purposes, right? Sure, Mira. Let's just tell ourselves that. But yeah, pre-conflict, Ukraine was definitely on the map for its nightlife. Apparently, they also had some pretty cool festivals, music and art ones, that were getting more and more international attention. Wow.
Festivals. Oh, I love festivals. Imagine Ukrainian music festivals. Maybe with traditional dancing mixed with modern beats. Whoa. I'd probably end up trying to learn all the folk dances, even if I look like a confused flamingo doing it.
A confused flamingo is probably an accurate description of your dancing at any festival, Mira. But yeah, festivals are a big part of entertainment in both countries. Russia has its film festivals, music fests, and of course, all sorts of traditional folk festivals. It's a year-round thing, really.
That's so charming. Though, I love seeing traditional costumes and hearing folk music. It's like time travel, but with more singing and dancing. Though, I'd probably try to join in and accidentally mess up the choreography.
You'd probably start a whole new dance craze, Mira. The Mira Mishap Shuffle. But yeah, both countries have a rich tapestry of entertainment. Russia, grand and classical. Ukraine, maybe a bit more underground. Depends what flavor of entertainment you're craving.
Flavor of entertainment. I like that, Leo. It's like choosing between a fancy caviar and vodka tasting in Russia, or maybe a spicy homemade spirit and street food adventure in Ukraine. Oh, both sound delicious in their own way.
Alright, Mira, now you're just making me hungry. But you're right, different flavors for different tastes. If you want to feel like you're in a Storta Fundama, Russia's theaters and opera houses are hard to beat. If you want something more raw and energetic, maybe Ukraine's club scene is calling.
Raw and energetic, that's definitely more my speed. Though, I wouldn't say no to a bit of historical drama too. Maybe we need to do a double feature trip. 1 week in Russia for the ballet and grand theaters, and then straight to Ukraine for the underground clubs and festivals. Whoa.
A double feature trip sponsored by Jet-Off A, perhaps? We could call it From Czars to Techno A Nightlife Funs. Catchy, right?
I love it. It's got that Jet Off I travel vibe written all over it. Wow. Okay, Leo, podcast idea officially locked in. Let's pitch it. And maybe start packing our dancing shoes and maybe some earplugs for the techno part.
Earplugs definitely for you, Mira. And maybe a tiara for Russia, just in case you actually do try to curtsy at the Bolshoi. But yeah, nightlife and entertainment definitely something both countries have going for them, in their own unique ways.
Our current topic. We compare family-friendly environments and children's activities into countries. From welcoming parks to engaging museums, we're diving into what Russia and Ukraine offer families. Let's kick things off with parks, Leah. I always think a good park is like a city's hub families, don't you?
Mira, you always have such a flowery way of putting things. I'd say a good park is more like a caffeine shot for parents, keeps the kids running around so they actually sleep at night. But yeah, parks is like a actually sleep at night. Yeah, cards are key. Thinking of more places like Gorky Park in Moscow, right?
Absolutely legendary. It's like a playground the size of a small country. Ooh, they have those amazing winter, and in summer, it's just bursting with fun fairs and little boats on the pond. It's the kind of place where kids can run wild and parents can pretend to keep up. What about Ukraine, Leo? Any park gems there?
Ukraine has got some crackers too, Mira. Khyv's got Hydro Park, which is this island in the middle of the Dnieper River. Imagine telling your kids we're going to a park on an island. Whoa, it's got beaches, water sports, all that jazz. Maybe not as manicured as Gorky Park, but definitely an adventure. Plus, islands always sound cooler.
That's instantly upgraded to super cool parent status. Speaking of cool, let's think about museums. Museums can be tricky with kids, right? You want them to learn something, but not get bored and start using the exhibits as jungle gyms. Russia's got some incredible museums, like the Hermitage Street. Petersburg. Maybe a bit much for toddlers, though.
The Hermitage with toddlers? Ouch. That's brave, Mira. Or maybe slightly insane. It's like taking a goldfish to the ocean and saying, enjoy the view. For kids in Russia, maybe something like the Moscow Planetarium would be more up their alley. Patience of accidentally knocking over a priceless vase.
Planetarium. Perfect. Because what kid doesn't love space? It's like automatically fascinating. Wow, and Ukraine? Do they have any kid-friendly museums that are out of this world? Oh,
Ukraine has got the Kyiv National Museum of Natural Sciences. Dinosaurs mirror. Dinosaurs mirror. Dinosaurs? Who needs priceless vases when you've got massive dinosaur skeletons? Whoa. Plus, stuffed animals, rocks, all sorts of natural history goodies. Way more awesome than Rembrandt, if you ask me.
Bursum. Love it. Dinosaurs definitely win against vases in the Kid Appeal contest. Ooh, what about other activities, Leo? Like, beyond parks and museums? Are there any uniquely Russian or Ukrainian things families can do?
Well, in Russia, you've got the whole circus tradition. Russian circuses are famous, right? Clowns, acrobats, bears on bikes, maybe not politically correct bears on bikes anymore, but still. It's a classic family outing. Plus, ice skating rinks everywhere in winter, not just in Gorky Park. Russians take their ice skating seriously, even the little ones.
That's something. That's something. Circuses are always a hit, though. Lots of sparkly costumes and silly noises. Ooh, and nice skating. Imagine little kids bundled up in snowswoots wobbling around on skates. Adorable chaos. Adorable chaos. What about Ukraine? Anything they're known for family activity-wise?
Ukraine has got a strong tradition of folk festivals and events, especially in the countryside. Think Cossack games, traditional dances, craft workshops. It's a great way for kids to connect with their culture in a fun, hands-on way. Plus, Ukrainian food festivals are epic. We are Nikki and D run Y for everyone.
Food festivals. Now you're talking my language, Leo. V on Nikki and D. D or Y sound delicious. It's like cultural immersion through yummy food. That's a win-win. And Cossack games. Are those like mini Olympics for kids? Whoa.
Kind of, Mira. Think horsemanship, archery, maybe a bit of swordplay, kid-friendly swordplay. Of course. It's all about showing off Ukrainian traditions and skills in a lively, entertaining way. Way more exciting than just reading about history in a book, that's for sure.
Much more exciting than history books. Learning by doing, and maybe getting to dress up. In a Cossack outfit? Oh, amen. What about just the general vibe, Leo? Like, are restaurants and cafes in Russia generally welcoming to families with kids?
Yeah, pretty much in both places. Especially in the bigger cities, you'll find plenty of family-friendly restaurants with kids' menus. High chairs, maybe even play areas. Russians and Ukrainians, they're generally pretty family-oriented cultures. Kids are part of life. You know, not hidden away somewhere.
That's lovely to hear. Because sometimes you go to a place and you feel where kids are tolerated, but not exactly welcome with open arms. But Russia and Ukraine sound like they get the family vibe right. Anything else that stands out about family life in these countries when it comes to kids?
Well, grandparents often play a big role in raising kids in both Russia and Ukraine. Both cousin D is cast are like super parents, Mira. Wow, they spoil the grandkids rotten, tell them stories, teach them traditions. It's a really lovely aspect of the culture, I think. Plus, free babysitting skur.
Free babysitting by super grandparents. That's the dream, isn't it? Oh, grandparents are the best with all their wisdom and sneaky treats. It's like having a secret ally in the family.
Exactly. And in both countries, you see kids out and about quite late, especially in summer. Families stroll in the evenings. Kids play in the squares. It's a more communal feel to family life, maybe. Less about being cooped up at home, more about being part of the city, the community.
That sounds wonderful. Like, the city itself becomes an extension of your living room in a way. Oh, so for families considering a trip, or even a move, to Russia or Ukraine, what's the takeaway, Leo? Family-friendly thumbs up?
Definitely thumbs up for family friendliness in both Russia and Ukraine. Loads of parks, museums, activities, welcoming attitude, maybe brush up on your Russian or Ukrainian, depending on where you're headed, but otherwise, But otherwise, pack your bags and get ready for some family fun. Just maybe leave the goldfish at home when you visit the hermitage.
Good advice, Leo. Good advice, Leo. Fairy packed some extra snacks for those long museum visits, just in case the dinosaurs get hungry. Thanks for taking us on this family-friendly tour of Russia and Ukraine. Leo, it sounds like wonderful places for families to explore and make memories. And listeners, if you've got any family travel tips for Russia or Ukraine, drop them in the comments on YouTube. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, share your stories, folks. And if you like this chat, give us a like and subscribe. It's like a virtual high five for us. And for more country comparisons and travel insights, head over to Jet Off A. And for more country comparisons and travel insights, head over to Jet Off A. Hours of info to fuel your wanderlust. Until next time, folks, stay family friendly.
Let's dive into a topic that's certainly is LGBT-friendly atmospheres. And today we're putting Russia and Ukraine under the spotlight. Think of it like comparing borscht and, well, still borscht, but maybe with slightly different beats.
Borscht varieties aside, Mira, this isn't exactly a laugh riot topic, is it? More like comparing to shades of gray, if you catch my drift. But alright, let's see if we can find some humor in societal attitude, shall we? Maybe we can joke our way through this minefield.
Well, starting with Russia, it's how do I put this delicately? Not exactly throwing rainbow confetti parades every weekend. Legally speaking, things are, shall we say, complicated? Remember that law about propaganda? Yeah, that one. Makes you feel like you're in a time machine back to, oh, I don't know, some less color.
Less colorful eras, putting it mildly, Mira. Russia's been handing out no homo vibes for a while now, hasn't it? It's like they're allergic to rainbows. You'd think with all that vodka, they'd be a bit more relaxed, but apparently not when it comes to, love in all its forms.
And it's not just laws, is it? Socially, it can be tough. You don't exactly see pride flags waving from every window in Moscow. Do you? Although, I bet if you tried to organize a flash mob with rainbow umbrellas, it would be, shall we say, memorable. Well, maybe even YouTube-worthy. If someone dares to film it.
Memorable in the police van kind of way, perhaps. I picture more of a hide your rainbow situation than a wave your rainbow one. Though, imagine the comedy in a secret underground rainbow row, that's a movie plot.
Okay. Point taken. Russia challenge level expert. But let's pivot to Ukraine. It's different, right? Like, they're not exactly best IEES with Russia right now. And that seems to spill over into social attitudes too. They're definitely trying to lean more towards, the European vibe.
So I think that we can compliment leaning towards Europe. Sure, but still wobbling a bit. Wouldn't you say? Ukraine's trying to do the whole balancing act thing. They want to show they're progressive, but they've still got, let's be honest, a fair chunk of society that's less than thrilled about the whole LGBT thing. It's like they're saying we're open-minded, but not that open-minded.
True. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and kind either, is it? But they have had pride parades, haven't they? And those, from what I hear, are getting bigger and bolder. Oh, like a little spark of fabulousness in the well, It's progress, right? Baby steps.
Baby steps and stilettos, maybe. Kai pride is definitely a thing, and it's got guts, I'll give them that. But let's not pretend it's all smooth sailing. There's still pushback, still those lovely far-right groups trying to crash the party. Oops, it's not exactly a walk in the park. More like a sprint through an obstacle course in heels.
Obstacle course in heels. Love it, Leo. Enjoy ride. It's not a fairy tale. But you hear stories, don't you? Inspiring community groups, people fighting for rights, trying to change hearts and minds. Well, that's gotta count for something, right? even if it's slow going.
Oh, absolutely. There are heroes everywhere, Mira, even in places where the spotlight isn't exactly rainbow colored. The quiet acts of defiance, the small victories, those are the stories that really matter. And maybe, just maybe, if we talk about it enough, and if people watch this on YouTube and share it, we can help shine a little light, huh?
And hey, maybe someone listening to this on Jet Off AI is planning a documentary about underground rainbow raves in Siberia right now. Who knows? The world is full of surprises, even when it comes to LGBT friendliness and well, let's just say certain places. But awareness conversation, a bit of humor it all helps, doesn't it?
Humor and awareness are secret weapons, Mira. Against everything, really. So, if you're planning a romantic getaway, maybe Prague or Berlin are easier on the radar than Moscow. But hey, both countries have borscht, right? So, there's always that.
Our current topic, we compare hospitality and attitudes towards foreigners into countries, uncovering welcoming cultures and real expat experiences. From what I've heard, both Russia and Ukraine have reputations for being quite generous hosts, but maybe in different ways.
Generous hosts, you say? Well, Mira, I hope they're not too generous with the vodka right off the bat. I've heard stories of being welcomed with so much hospitality you can barely stand up by the end of the evening. But seriously, let's dig into whether that warmth extends to just anyone, or if it's reserved for, say, long-lost relatives from afar.
Beer. You're always thinking about the drinks. But you might have a point about the type of hospitality. I imagine in Russia, it's this grand, almost theatrical welcome, like in a Tolstoy novel, maybe with elaborate dinners and heartfelt toasts. Oh, while Ukraine, perhaps it's a bit more down-to-earth, cozy, and family-oriented, like being invited into someone's babushka's kitchen for endless cups of tea and homemade pastries.
Tolstoy novels and babushka's kitchens, you're painting a lovely picture, Mira. But let's not get carried away by romantic stereotypes. I suspect reality is a tad more nuanced. For instance, I've heard Russians can be initially reserved, even a bit stoic, until you break through that outer shell. It's like cracking a safe, right? But once you're in, they're fiercely loyal and incredibly hospitable.
A stoic safe. I like that. Leo. So, it's like you need a secret code. Maybe learn a few key Russian phrases, or bring a really good bottle of something to unlock the hospitality. Whereas with Ukraine, maybe the door's a bit more open from the start. Like, come in, stranger, we have borscht.
Come in, stranger, we have borscht. That's definitely got a Ukrainian ring to it. Though, I wouldn't underestimate the power of borscht in Russia too, Mira. Food is definitely a universal language of hospitality, right? But back to the initial vibe, I think in Ukraine, there might be a more immediate openness, a kind of neighborly warmth, perhaps because they're just naturally more laid back.
Neighborly warmth that's so sweet. It's like you just pop over the fence and suddenly you're caught at the family barbecue. I can almost smell the grilled sausages already. But speaking of neighbors, I wonder if the current political situation changes things. Does it make attitudes towards foreigners more cautious? Or perhaps even more welcoming in a we're all in this together kind of way?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it, Mira? Politics always throws a wrench in the works when we're talking about people-to-people interactions. It's tricky. On one hand, shared hardship can sometimes strengthen bonds, create empathy. On the other hand, it can also breed suspicion and caution. It's a real mixed bag, and I'm guessing it varies a lot depending on who you talk to and where you are.
Maybe it also depends on where you're from as a foreigner. Someone from, say, Western Europe might get a different reaction than someone from, say, Central Asia. In both Russia and Ukraine, it's like a complicated equation with so many variables. Whoa!
A complicated equation, leave it to Mira to make international relations sound like advanced algebra. But you're right, origin definitely plays a role. Historical ties, current alliances. All that background noise influences how people perceive you. Let's not forget the language barrier. Trying to ask for the language can't even ask for directions. Oops.
Oh, The language barrier. That's a hospitality hurdle in itself. Imagine trying to express your heartfelt gratitude for that amazing babushka's pastry using just hand gestures in Google Translate. It could turn into a comedy sketch real quick. But seriously, does knowing even a little bit of Russian or Ukrainian make a huge difference in how you're treated, do you think?
Comedy sketch with pastries, I can see it now, Mira. You're miming kneading dough while trying to say thank you in Ukrainian. But yes, absolutely, even a few basic phrases go a long way. It shows you're making an effort, that you respect their culture. People appreciate that everywhere, but maybe especially in places where English isn't as widely spoken. It's like saying, hey, hi, please be patient with me.
Hey, I'm trying, please be patient with me. That should be printed on tourist turfs. Oh, it's the universal plea of every traveler. And I bet in both Russia and Ukraine, that genuine effort would be really appreciated. Maybe even rewarded with extra helpings of borscht and vodka, just kidding. Mostly kidding.
Extra borscht and vodka for effort, now you're talking my language, Mira. But back to being serious-ish for a moment. I think we need to be careful not to generalize too much. Hospitality isn't some uniform national trait. It's about individual people, their personalities, their experiences. You'll find warm and welcoming people everywhere, and maybe a few grumpy ones too, regardless of the country.
Grumpy people exist everywhere, Leo, dropping truth bombs again. You're right, it's not like stamping a country with a hospitable or unhospitable label. It's more like exploring the general vibe, the cultural tendencies, and being prepared for all sorts of encounters, both amazing and well less amazing.
Exactly, Mira. It's about going in with an open mind, a smile, maybe a phrase booking for the best. And if you do get invited for that Bushka's borscht, just say yes. You can always politely decline the 10th shot of vodka, maybe. And for more travel tips and cultural comparisons, don't forget to check out Jet Off AI and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely check out Jet Off AI for all your travel inspiration. And if you like this little chat about hospitality, give us a thumbs up on YouTube and let us know in the comments of why you experienced amazing hospitality in Russia or Ukraine. We'd love to hear your stories. Well, maybe they'll be even funnier than our borscht and vodka sketches. Okay, Leo, let's jump into the digital world. Ready to compare internet infrastructure and digital facilities in Russia and Ukraine. It's like comparing digital bears and digital. Well, what's a digital animal for Ukraine? A digital nightingale, maybe.
Digital nightingale? Mira, you're killing me? Maybe a digital stork bringing digital news? But yeah, internet stuff? Less poetic, more practical, right? Let's dive in. Starting with, who has better cat videos? Just kidding. Mostly.
Cat videos are crucial for a healthy digital ecosystem, Leo. But seriously, let's talk connectivity. I've heard Russia is huge, like, you could get lost for days just scrolling across it on a map. Does that size impact their internet reach?
Size matters, Mira, especially when you're trying to lay down cables across Siberia. Imagine trying to get Wi-Fi to a reindeer herder in the tundra. Talk about roaming charges. But yeah, Russia's got a vast territory, which definitely poses challenges for universal internet access.
Wow, reindeer Wi-Fi. That's a mental image. So, is it like some parts of Russia are super speed internet zones, and others are still on dial-up from the Stone Age? Exaggerating a bit, of course.
A slight exaggeration, Mira, slight. But there's definitely a digital divide. Major cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg, they're zipping along with fiber optics and all the fancy stuff. But head out to the more remote regions, and things can get patchy. Think of it like trying to get a strong coffee in a tiny village. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes it's instant sadness.
Instant sadness coffee. I can relate to that on a spiritual level. Oh, what about Ukraine? Is it more evenly spread out because it's, geographically cozier? Like a digital bunny compared to a digital bear?
Digital Bunny, Mira, you're on fire today. Ukraine is smaller, which naturally helps with infrastructure rollout. But it's not just size, it's also about investment and priorities. Ukraine has been pushing for digital transformation, and they've made some impressive strides in recent years, especially in mobile connectivity.
Mobile connectivity. That's key. Because who even uses desktops anymore, right? It's all about scrolling on your phone while walking down the street, maybe bumping into a few digital storks on the way. So, are Ukrainians all glued to their smartphones with super fast 4G or even 5G?
Well, glued might be an understatement, Mira. But yes, mobile internet penetration in Ukraine is quite high and growing. They've been pretty good at adopting new mobile technologies. Think of it like this: Russia is like a vast digital empire, building slowly but surely, while Ukraine is more like a nimble digital startup, quick to adapt and innovate.
Nimble digital startup versus fast digital empire. I like that. Ah ha ha. So, who's winning the digital innovation race? Is Russia churning out crazy tech inventions, or is Ukraine the underdog tech innovator surprising everyone?
That's a good question, Mira. Russia has a strong history in tech and science, and they definitely have their own tech giants and innovations, particularly in areas like cybersecurity and search engines. But Ukraine has a vibrant tech scene, especially in software development and IT outsourcing. They're like the secret ingredient in a lot of global tech products you might not always see, making a lot of label, but they're often behind the scenes.
Secret ingredient tech. Intriguing. Oh, so Ukraine is like the digital spice rack, adding flavor to the global internet soup. And Russia's like the digital samovar, brewing up something strong and traditional. Am I stretching this metaphor too far?
Stretching it, Mira, but I'm enjoying the digital culinary tour. Let's just say both countries have their own distinct digital flavors. Russia's might be a bit more centrally planned, shall we say, while Ukraine's is more open source, maybe?
Open source versus centrally planned digital flavors. Aha! Okay, I'm getting hungry for digital borscht now. But seriously, what about digital accessibility? Is the internet affordable for everyone in both countries? Or is it a luxury item for the digital elite?
Affordability is always a factor, Mira. In Russia, internet access, especially mobile data, can be relatively expensive compared to average incomes, particularly outside the major cities. Ukraine generally has more competitive pricing, making internet access more affordable for a larger portion of the population. Think of it like the price of a good joke in some places. You pay a premium in others. It's more accessible for everyone to enjoy.
So, Ukraine is the comedy club with affordable tickets for everyone, and Russia is the fancy theater where you need to save up for a good seat. Okay, I'm running with this metaphor now. But that's really important, right? Digital accessibility for everyone, not just the digital VIPs. Well,
Absolutely, Mira. Digital inclusion is key in today's world. And it's not just about price, it's also about digital literacy. Having access to the internet is one thing, knowing how to use it effectively and safely is another. Both countries are working on improving digital skills and education, but there's always room for more.
digital literacy, that, like knowing how to tell a good digital joke from a bad one. Are they teaching digital joke telling in schools yet? If not, they should. So, overall, when it comes to internet infrastructure and digital facilities, what's your final, slightly sarcastic, but still informative verdict? Leo.
My verdict, Mira, with a sprinkle of sarcasm and a shot of espresso. Both Russia and Ukraine are definitely in the digital game, but they're playing different strategies. Russia's the digital heavyweight with size and resources on its side, but sometimes a digital lightweight, quick and agile, innovating and adapting fast. Who's better? It depends what you're measuring: digital bears versus digital bunnies, I guess.
Digital bears versus digital bunnies. Perfectly put, Leo. And who knew comparing internet infrastructure could be so animalistic? Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed our digital safari through Russian Ukraine. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe if you found this digitally delightful. And for more comparisons, tips, and maybe even some reindeer WFI deals, just kidding! Check out Jet Fair.
Reindeer WI-Fi deals, I might steal that mirror. And yes, definitely check out Jet Fair. They're like the digital travel agents for your brain, helping you explore the world from your couch. Until next time, folks, stay digitally connected, but maybe take a break from the cat videos once in a while.
Our current topic, we compare shopping opportunities and price performance balance into countries, diving into retail diversity from bustling city centers to quaint local markets. It's like we're about to embark on a shopping spree. Virtually speaking, of course.
Shopping spree? Mira, are you picturing us with endless credit cards and bags overflowing with? What exactly? Price-performance balance sounds less like a spree and more like a careful calculation to avoid buyer's remorse. But alright, let's see if we can make even budget spreadsheets sound exciting.
Come on, Leo. Shopping isn't just about spreadsheets. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the joy of finding that perfect thing, and maybe, just maybe, getting a little bit more for your money. Think of it as an adventure in consumerism.
I like venture and consumerism. I like that. Sounds like the title of a slightly depressing documentary. But okay, adventure it is. So when we talk about Russia and Ukraine, where do we even begin our adventure? Are we talking caviar and matryoshka dolls versus embroidered shirts and borscht ingredients?
Well, for Russia, imagine stepping into these grand department stores in Moscow, like GUM. Wow. It's not just shopping, it's like visiting a palace. Everything sparkles and you feel like you're in a movie. Maybe a movie where you need a trust fund to buy anything. But still.
GUM, the Palace of Price Tags. Yes, visually stunning, architecturally impressive, and financially terrifying for the average person. Price performance there? Performance is high if you measure it in showing off your wealth, but for actual value, you might need to look elsewhere.
Think about the experience. Sometimes shopping is about more than just getting the cheapest deal. It's about feeling special, indulging a little.
True. Russia does grand like nobody's business. But grand often translates to grandly priced. So for price performance, maybe we need to venture beyond the gilded halls of GUM and find the real shopping heart of Russia. Like, where do normal people actually buy their socks?
Exactly. Let's talk about the markets. In Russia, you have these amazing markets, especially outside of Moscow and street. Petersburg, where you can find everything from fresh produce to handmade crafts. It's where the real price performance magic happens.
Markets? Yes, now we're talking. Markets are where you can haggle, discover local treasures, and maybe even get a free babushka lesson in vegetable selection. Ukraine also has fantastic markets, right? In picturing those vibrant outdoor bazaars piled high with fruits and flowers.
Oh, Ukrainian markets are a feast for the senses. Wow. Think mountains of colorful fruits and vegetables, fragrant spices, and those incredible homemade cheeses. And the prices? So much more reasonable than those fancy stores. You get amazing quality without emptying your wallet.
See, reasonable prices is music to my ears. Price-performance balance is starting to sway towards Ukraine in my mental scorecard. Russia might have the glitz, but Ukraine seems to have the grit and the good deals. Unless Russia has some secret affordable shopping spots we're missing.
Well, Russia is huge. And outside the major tourist centers, things can be surprisingly affordable. You just need to know where to look. Maybe those smaller towns and cities have hidden gems. Those little shops where locals go for everyday things at local prices. Aha!
Hidden gems. Sounds like we need a shopping treasure map of Russia. Or maybe just a Russian friend to guide us away from the tourist traps. Because let's be honest, tourist traps in any country are rarely about price performance. They're about convenience and ripoff.
Oh, tourist traps are definitely a no-go for price performance. But think about Ukrainian souvenirs. Those beautiful embroidered blouses. They are stunning, and you can find real lovely ones at markets or smaller shops for a fraction of what you might pay for something similar in, say, a Western European tourist shop. Ooh,
Veshvyankas, yes, beautiful and culturally significant. A good example of where Ukraine scores high on both performance in terms of cultural value and craftsmanship and price, because they are generally more affordable than similar handcrafted items elsewhere. Russia has similar crafts, right?
Russia has incredible crafts too. Think of the intricate woodwork, the painted boxes, the lacquered miniatures. Wow, they're works of art. But they can also come with a price tag that reflects that artistry. Maybe more art performance than price performance. In some cases,
Art performance, I like that distinction. So, if you're looking for investment-worthy art, Russian crafts might be the way to go, budget permitting. But if you want lovely, authentic souvenirs that don't break the bank, Ukraine might offer a sweeter spot. Like you get beauty and culture without needing to sell your car.
Ukrainian shopping feels more accessible, like you can actually buy nice things without feeling guilty about your bank account crying in the corner. Russia can feel a bit more aspirational, like you're shopping for a lifestyle you might one day afford if you win the lottery.
Aspirational shopping, that's a new term for my stand-up routine. Russia aspirational shopping. Ukraine actual attainable, enjoyable shopping. Broad strokes, I know, but for price performance, Ukraine is definitely looking strong. Unless we're missing a crucial element, what about online shopping?
That's a whole different world. In Russian Ukraine, online shopping is booming, just like everywhere else. And that can really change the price performance game. Suddenly, you can compare prices across different sellers, find deals, and maybe even snag some international brands that are harder to find in physical stores.
Online shopping levels the playing field, doesn't it? Suddenly, access to goods isn't just about what's available in your local GWIM or market. It's about who has the best internet connection and the most savvy online shopping skills. Does online performance balance back towards Russia? Maybe?
Maybe slightly. Russia's e-commerce market is definitely larger, and they have some big online retailers. But Ukraine's online market is growing fast too, and there's a real entrepreneurial spirit there. Plus, sometimes small Ukrainian online shops can offer really unique, handcrafted items that are hard to find elsewhere online.
Handcrafted online. Intriguing. So, Ukraine might have the edge in terms of unique, artisan goods online, potentially at better prices, while Russia could dominate in volume and maybe access to a wider range of international brands online. It's getting complicated. Maybe price performance isn't so simple after all.
Price performance is like life, Leo. It's not always black and white. It depends on what you're looking for, what you value, and how you define performance. For some people, performance is luxury and status, and for others, it's quality and value for money. Ooh.
Deep thoughts on price performance, Mira. You're turning this shopping comparison into a philosophical treatise. But you're right. Performance is subjective. If performance means getting the most Instagram-able shopping selfie, GUM wins hands down. If performance means filling your fridge with delicious, affordable groceries, Ukrainian markets are the champions.
Instagram-able shopping selfies. That should be a whole new podcast category. But yes, for everyday shopping and getting great value for your money, Ukraine seems to shine. And for a taste of luxury and grand shopping experiences, Russia has its moments, even if your wallet might need therapy afterwards.
Wallet therapy? Another great podcast topic. But for now, let's summarize our shopping adventure. Russia grand, sometimes pricey, but with pockets of affordability if you know where to look. Ukraine vibrant, affordable, excellent value, especially in markets and for local crafts. For price performance, I'm leaning towards Ukraine for everyday needs and delightful discoveries. How about you, Mira?
I agree, Leo. Ukraine for the win in price performance balance. It's like getting sunshine and smiles with your shopping bag. Yeah. And who can put a price on that? Well, actually, You can, and it's probably quite reasonable in Ukraine. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying our price performance breakdown on YouTube.
Indeed, like and subscribe, and maybe we'll do a follow-up episode Wallet Therapy after Russian souvenir shopping. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and big thanks to Jetoff AI for keeping the podcast lights on, even when we're debating the philosophical implications of price performance.
Yes, thank you, Jetoff AI. You can find more about us in Jetoff AI website. Until next time, happy shopping, wherever you are, and remember to shop smart and smile often. Bye. Okay, Leo. Let's jump into topic number 23, which is all about cultural events, festivals, and concert opportunities in Russia and Ukraine. Ooh, sounds like fun, right? Like a party hopping across the country.
Party hopping might be a bit of an overstatement, Mira, unless you consider enduring long lines and questionable street food partying. But alright, cultural events it is. Let's see if we can find some laughs amidst all the culture.
Festivals are always fun. Think of Russia, for example. They have Maslenitsa, that amazing pancake festival before Lent. Wow! Imagine mountains of pancakes, like a carb lover's dream come true. They even burn a straw effigy of winter. Talk about dramatic.
Burning effigies? Sounds like my kind of festival, Mira. Anything that involves fire and possibly some mild chaos gets my attention. Though pancakes, are we sure that's culture or just a very good marketing strategy by the flour industry?
Leo, you're such a tease. But it's true, Maslenitsa is steeped in tradition. It's about welcoming spring, family, and community. Undo, okay, maybe eating a lot of pancakes too. Though, they have folk music, dancing, of course, there's delicious variety. Imagine trying to flip a pancake in the freezing cold. Now that's entertainment.
Alright. Pancakes in the snow. I'll give you that, Mira. It does sound slightly less absurd than some of the cultural events, slightly less absurd than some witnessed. Speaking of absurd, Ukraine has Ivan Kupala, right? Where people jump over bonfires and float wreaths on water. Sounds like a pagan rave.
Ivan Kupala is super magical. It's like stepping into a fairy tale. People wear flower crowns, sing folk songs, and yes, jump over bonfires. It's supposed to cleanse you and bring good luck. And the wreaths on the water are so beautiful, especially at night with candles. Ah, so romantic. Even you must admit.
Romantic? Me? Mira, are you sure you're talking to the right podcast host? Mod okay, bonfires and wreaths. It's visually interesting, I'll concede. Less about carbs, more about potential fire hazards. Still, I'm picturing a lot of singed eyebrows and soggy flower arrangements.
Oh, you're just picturing the mishaps, Leo. It's actually very carefully organized and safe, mostly. And beyond the bonfires, Ukraine has Vaishaiv and Kade. It's a celebration of their embroidered shirts. Wow. Everyone wears these beautifully decorated shirts. It's like a national fashion show, but way more meaningful and historical.
National fashion show. Mira, you're making it sound like the Eurovision Song Contest, but with more fabric and less glitter. But I get it, celebrating traditional clothing. Russia's something similar, right? Like, maybe it's Henke Hat Day, where everyone wears those furry hats and looks like they're about to invade Siberia?
Leo, no it's Henke Hat Day exactly, but they do have amazing traditional costumes too. Especially during folk festivals. Think of Russian Costume Day, where everyone could dress up in those vibrant serif and Rezin kokoshnik headdresses. Imagine the photos. So colorful and historical. Ooh.
Kokoshnik headdresses. Those pointy things? They look like they could double as emergency antennas in a power outage. But alright, I'm picturing it. Lots of pointy hats and embroidered shirts. Are there any actual concerts though, or is... Or is it just people in costumes dancing around bonfires?
Of course, there are concerts. Both countries have thriving music scenes. In Russia, you have everything from classical music in world-renowned concert halls to huge rock festivals and pop concerts. Think about the Moscow International Film Festival. It's not just movies, it has amazing concerts too. Wow.
Film festivals with concerts. Now you're talking, Mira. Anything that combines art forms is slightly less tedious. Ukraine has music festivals too, right? Like that Atlas Weekend thing. Supposed to be pretty big. Though, I'm guessing it's less about classical orchestras and more about, well, whatever is vaguely popular these days.
Atlas Weekend is HUGE. It's one of the biggest music festivals in Eastern Europe. They have all kinds of music, from rock and pop to electronic and hip-hop. Imagine thousands of people dancing in the summer sun. So much energy and fun. Oh, and Ukraine also has a strong opera and ballet tradition, just like Russia. Think of the Leda National Opera. So grand and beautiful, wow. Wow.
Opera and ballet. Mira, you're going from rave-like bonfires to opera houses in record time. I suppose there's a bit of everything for everyone then. From pancake-fueled folk festivals to hyper opera performances. Though, I'm still picturing myself at that pancake festival strategically positioned near the free samples.
Even you are warming up to the idea of cultural events. It's not just about pancakes or bonfires. It's about experiencing the heart and soul of a country. And both Russia and Ukraine has so much to offer in terms of music, dance, theater, and festivals. It's a feast for the senses.
Feast for the senses. Mira, you're starting to sound like a travel brochure. But I get your point. Cultural events can be culturally enriching, and if there are pancakes involved, I might even consider attending one. Just as long as they don't expect me to jump over any bonfires. Ugh. I'm not insured for pagan rituals, you know.
Don't worry, Leo. No mandatory bonfire jumping. But you might miss out on some good luck. Anyway, whether it's the grand scale of Russian festivals or the vibrant energy of Ukrainian events, there's definitely a lot of culture and entertainment to explore in both countries. Ooh. And that's just scratching the surface.
Just scratching the surface. Sounds exhausting, Mira. Eh? But yes, point taken. If you're into costumes, cobs, fire... Sounds vaguely popular music. Russia and Ukraine seem to have you covered. Then maybe, just maybe, even I could find something mildly amusing amidst all the culture. Though I'll still pack my own coffee. Just in case.
Our next stop on our comparative world tour, language learning. You know, Leo, it's funny how much people sweat about languages. Like, suddenly every earnest linguist worried about declensions and conjugations.
Right. It's like, chill out, people. It's just talking with extra grammar hurdles thrown in for fun. Or maybe for torture, depending on the language. Speaking of hurdles, Russian Ukraine to Slavic giants in the language learning arena.
Slavic giants. I like that, Leo. Makes them sound like characters from a fairy tale. Except instead of dragons, you're battling cases. So, for someone wanting to dive into a new language, what's the deal with Russian and Ukrainian?
Well, let's be honest, neither is going to be a walk in the park for native English speakers. Aha! Different alphabet for starters, Cyrillic. Looks cool, kinda mysterious, but suddenly you're deciphering symbols instead of letters.
Like secret codes. Like secret codes. Wow, maybe learning Cyrillic is like becoming a spy? Imagine telling people, oh, I'm fluent in spy alphabet. But seriously, is it that hard to pick up?
It's learnable, definitely. It's not like Klingon. It's plenty of resources out there, apps, courses, YouTube channels. You can even find some on Jidafe? I bet, right, Mira?
Just your language learning packs. Absolutely, Leo. We're all about making your global adventure smoother, and language is key. Oh, and you're right, Cyrillic isn't impossible. It's just different, like switching from driving on the right side of the road to the left. A little disorienting at first.
Disorienting is putting it mildly. It's like trying to read backwards while juggling flaming torches. Whoa, but once you get the hang of it, it does unlock a whole new world. Suddenly, menus aren't just twiggles. Street signs make sense it's progress.
And think of the bragging rights. Russian. Yeah, I just casually picked it up. Seriously though, are there good language schools in Russia and Ukraine if someone wanted to do it properly?
Loads in the big cities, Moscow, Kyiv, St. Petersburg, Lviv universities, private schools, tutors. Both countries have a history of teaching the languages to foreigners. They're geared up for it.
So, it's not just about deciphering the alphabet. What about the actual language itself? Are Russian and Ukrainian very similar? Or is it more like comparing, say, Spanish and German?
Closer than Spanish and German, definitely. Imagine them as cousins in a Slavic family. They share roots, some vocabulary, but they've definitely got their own personalities. Understanding one helps with the other, but they are distinct languages.
Cousins with different personalities. Oh, Sam, is Russian the louder, more assertive cousin, and Ukrainian the quieter, more melodic one? Just kidding. But is one considered easier to learn than the other for English speakers?
That's a tricky one. Russian has been more widely taught internationally for longer, so maybe more established resources. Ukrainian is gaining traction, especially now, but might have slightly fewer readily available materials in some places.
But in terms of difficulty, grammar, pronunciation, is there a clear winner or loser in the easy-to-learn contest? Ouch! I mean, winner in the less daunting contest?
Pronunciation-wise, Russian might have a few more tricky sounds for English speakers, those rolled RS, for example. Ukrainian pronunciation is sometimes said to be a bit more straightforward, but grammar both are Slavic, so get ready for cases, verb aspects, it's a grammatical workout either way.
Sounds intense, like language learning boot camp. But hey, no pain, no gain. No gain. Imagine the mental muscles you'll build. Wow.
So I think of it as brain lifting. Each case you master, each verb aspect you conquer, it's like adding another kilo to your mental bench press. You'll be intellectually ripped in no time.
Intellectually ripped. I love it, Leo. So, for anyone watching this on YouTube and thinking, maybe I should learn a Slavic language, what would you say? Russian or Ukrainian for a beginner?
Depends on your motivation, really. Russian opens doors to a huge cultural and historical landscape, and is spoken across a vast area. Ukrainian is increasingly important, with a rich culture and a growing global presence.
So it's like choosing between a classic novel and a cutting-edge indie film. Both amazing, just different vibes. And either way, learning a language is always a good idea, right? Especially if you want to connect with people and cultures on a deeper level.
Absolutely. It's not just about words and grammar. It's about opening your mind, seeing the world in a new way. And let's be honest, impressing people at parties. Oh, you speak Ukrainian? Wow, that's unexpected.
Unexpected and impressive. The perfect combo. Wow. So, if you're looking for a language learning adventure that's challenging but rewarding, Russian and Ukrainian are definitely worth considering. And remember, Jet Off AI is here to help you explore all your global options.
Indeed. And if you decide to dive in, let us know in the comments on YouTube. We're always curious to hear about your language learning journeys. Maybe you even teach us a few phrases. Maybe...
Safety and comfort for women travelers in Russia and Ukraine. It's like asking if a snowy winter is colder than a slightly less snowy winter, right?
Mira, you always find a way to make geopolitics sound like the weather forecast. But yeah, safety and comfort sounds like we're about to dive into a Miss Universe competition, but with more bears and borscht.
Except instead of world peace, we're aiming for world to have a peace of mind. Oh, so Russia first. For women traveling in Russia, especially solo, well, you might get some extra attention. Let's put it that way.
Extra attention? You mean like the kind where guys offer to carry your luggage? Or the kind where they think so female traveler translates to desperate for a husband? I'm guessing it's leaning towards the latter.
Seriously, petty crime in big Russian cities can be an issue, especially for tourists to stand out. Pickpockets, scams, you know, the usual city hazards. Just maybe with a side of Slavic charm.
Slavic charm, you say? Is that like when they give you a compliment in Russian and you smile, thinking it's sweet, but it actually translates to nice shoes? Would you steal them? Gotta love that directness.
Oh, Leo, you're terrible. But yeah, being aware of your surroundings, especially at night, is key. And maybe avoid flashing expensive jewelry, unless you want to accidentally jewelry, unless you want to accidentally start a new fashion trend in the local underworld. Oops.
True, true. And culturally in Russia, there's still a bit of a, let's say, traditional view of gender roles. So expect some old school chivalry, which can be nice, or some old school assumptions, which can be less.
Right. Being offered a seat on the bus is lovely, but being told you shouldn't be out alone so late, less of a travel brochure moment.
A mix like a vodka cocktail strong, potentially surprising, and best consumed with a bit of caution. Okay, Ukraine then. Moving westward slightly does the safety vibe shift.
Kai, for example, felt pretty safe to wander around during the day, and even into the evening in the central areas. Of course, big city rules still apply. Be smart. Be aware.
Smart. Aware and maybe learn a few phrases in Ukrainian, just in case the Slavic charm translates differently there. Like, maybe in Ukraine nice shoes actually means those shoes will get you to a great coffee shop.
Maybe. But generally, my impression of Ukraine was a bit more relaxed in terms of that constant, extra attention you might feel in Russia. People seem to more mind their own business, in a good way.
Mind their own business sounds almost Scandinavian. But with better food, I assume? Because let's be honest, pickled herring isn't exactly a comfort food for women ravelers. Unless, is it?
Definitely better food. And yeah, in Ukraine, I felt like I could just blend in a bit more, you know? Less of that feeling of being obviously a tourist, which can sometimes attract unwanted attention.
Blending in is good. Less hate, look, a foreigner. And more, oh, just another person enjoying a pierogi. Sounds ideal. Though, pierogi might still attract some attention. They're delicious.
And the people I met in Ukraine were incredibly friendly and helpful, especially if you tried to speak a little Ukrainian. Even just to yak you why you thank you. Big smiles. Oh.
Smiles are always a good safety feature. Hard to pickpocket someone who's smiling at you, right? Unless they're smiling because they just pickpocketed you. Okay, maybe smiles aren't foolproof.
No, but they definitely create an ice atmosphere. And in terms of actual safety concerns in Ukraine, like anywhere, you have areas that are better than others. Stick to well-lit, populated places at night, and you should be generally fine in the main cities.
Generally fine, that's the travel motto, isn't it? Generally fine unless a flock of pigeons steals your passport. It's always something, but sounds like for women travelers, Ukraine offers a slightly less intense experience than Russia, maybe?
Yeah, less intense is a good way to put it. Both have their charms, of course, and wonderful people, but for just feeling comfortable as a woman traveling solo, Ukraine felt a bit more effortless. Maybe?
Effortless travel, a mythical creature. Like a unicorn, but made of plane tickets and zero jet lag. But I get what you mean. Less hassle, less unwanted charm, more just enjoying the place.
So, for women travelers looking for that, Ukraine might just have a slight edge in the safety and comfort department. Though, always do your research and trust your gut, wherever you go.
Trust your gut, and maybe pack some pepper spray shaped like a lipstick, just in case the Slavic charm gets a little too charming. But good points, Mira. Safety first, then pierogi. That's the motto for women travelers in Eastern Europe, right?
I think we just invented a new travel slogan. Safety first, then pierogi. Write that down, Leah. We're going viral. Wow. Okay, Leo. Let's chat about something that sounds super serious but will make it fun: legal systems, individual rights, and freedoms in Russia and Ukraine. It's like Are we talking about rule books or suggestion boxes?
Rule books and suggestion boxes? Mira, that's almost poetic. More like rule books written in invisible ink and suggestion boxes that led straight to a shredder, maybe. But alright, let's dive into the delightful world of laws and liberties.
So, starting with Russia. I mean, they have a constitution, right? Like, with words and everything? No. Do you think it's one of those constitutions that's always getting little adjustments?
Adjustments. Mira, you're being so gentle. It's more like a constitution that's written every Tuesday just to keep things spicy. They probably have a whole department dedicated to constitutional redecorating. New week, new rights. Surprise!
Constitutional redecorating. I love it. So, in theory, they have rights like freedom of speech and assembly, right? But in practice, is it more like freedom to whisper in your own closet alone?
Freedom of speech in Russia. Sure, you're free to say absolutely nothing controversial. Wow. Think of it as extreme interpretive dance. You can express yourself as long as no one understands what you're trying to say.
That's creative in a worrying way. What about Ukraine? They're also supposed to have these rights things, but are they, like, actually there? Oh? They're actually there. Oh.
Ukraine, bless their hearts. They're trying. They've got a constitution, probably less redecorated than Russia's this week. And they do wave the flag of individual rights. Maybe a bit tattered around the edges, but still waving.
So, when we talk about the legal system itself, is it like in Russia? The law bends over backwards when the government sneezes? And in Ukraine, it tries to stand up straight, maybe with a little wobble.
In Russia, the legal system is less scales of justice and is less scales of whatever the Kremlin weighs. If the government sneezes, the law catches a cold, then pneumonia, and then just dissolves into mist. In Ukraine, it's more like the laws trying to do yoga at a hurricane.
That's intense. So, for the average person like you or me, if we were suddenly in legal trouble in Russia, would we need to find a lawyer who's also a magician?
You're who's a magician? Mir, you're an optimist. You need a lawyer who's a magician, a mind reader, and possibly a time traveler to go back and into whatever got you into trouble in the first place. Good luck finding one with availability.
Time-traveling lawyer. Now that's a niche market. And in Ukraine, is it slightly less magical lawyer needed? Maybe just a really, really good one who knows how to dodge legal obstacles. Ooh.
In Ukraine, a really, really good lawyer is definitely helpful. Think of it as navigating a legal obstacle course designed by Kafka, but at least some of the obstacles are actually meant to be jumped over, not just admired for their absurdity.
A car obstacle course. Sounds fun. In a stressful, existential kind of way. What about freedom of the press? In Russia, is it like the press is free to print government press releases and that's about it?
I think that we can print it. Freedom of the press in Russia is like having a really fancy printing press that's only allowed to print wallpaper. And the wallpaper has to be approved by a committee. And the committee is made up of, well, you get the picture.
Wallpaper press. Limited edition government-approved wallpaper. Collectible. And in Ukraine, is the press actually, pressing things? Like, asking tough questions and stuff? Wow.
In Ukraine, the press is definitely trying to press things. Sometimes they get their fingers caught in the machine, but they keep on pressing. There's definitely more ink flowing freely, even if it sometimes gets splashed around a bit messily. Ooh.
Messy ink flow sounds way better than wallpaper press. What about protesting? If people in Russia wanted to, say, protest about the lack of good wallpaper designs, could they?
Protesting in Russia about wallpaper designs? Mira. Yes. They could protest quietly in their kitchen, maybe. And hope the walls don't have ears. Public protests? More like public synchronized politely asking for better wallpaper designs once.
Synchronized polite wallpaper walks. Charming. And in Ukraine, can people actually, gather and shout about stuff they're not happy with? Or is it more of a strongly worded letter writing kind of vibe? Whoa.
In Ukraine, people can effectively gather and shout. Sometimes they shout very loudly. And sometimes the shouting leads to interesting developments. It's definitely more of a shout it from the rooftops kind of vibe than a strongly worded letter one. Just maybe wear comfortable shoes for all that rooftop shouting.
Comfortable shoes for rooftop shouting practical advice. So, wrapping up this legal and freedom fiesta, it sounds like in Russia, the rights are theoretically present, but practically shy.
Shy is putting it mildly, Mira. More like rights in Russia are in witness protection. They exist, technically, but they're keeping a very low profile and definitely not giving interviews. In Ukraine, they're more actively seeking therapy and trying to assert themselves, despite the ongoing complications.
That's actually kind of sad. But all funny in a dark comedy way. So, if you were choosing a country based purely on legal system and freedoms, Ukraine might be the slightly less Kafkaesque option.
Slightly less Kafkaesque? Yes. Think of it as choosing between a Kafka novel and a Kafka short story. Both involve existential greed and bureaucratic mayors, but one is marginally shorter and less likely to give you a headache. So, Ukraine marginally less headache-inducing, legally speaking.
Marginally less headache-inducing Kafka? Well, that's almost a recommendation. Thanks, Leo, for making legal systems and freedoms sound almost fun.
Anytime, Mira. Making the absurdities of the world slightly more digestible is my comedic calling. And hey, at least we didn't have to actually live under either of those legal systems to talk about them. That's a freedom we can both appreciate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Ready to unwind and distress? Because today we're diving into the world of spas, healthy living, and relaxation in Russia and Ukraine. Russia and Ukraine. Oh, think saunas, massages, maybe even a bit of mudslinging for wellness.
Mudslinging for wellness, Mira? Is that a new spot treatment I missed? Or are we just describing a typical political debate in those regions? Relaxation sounds like a luxury those countries haven't seen much of lately. But alright, let's see if we can find some zen amongst the geopolitical tension.
Oh, Leo. Always so dramatic. But seriously, when you think of Russia, you gotta think of the Bonya. That steamy, intense, leafy experience. It's like a full-body reset button. Imagine flushing out all your worries, all those unanswered emails, maybe even that questionable street food you tried last week.
Sweating out worries in a banya sounds less like relaxation and more like preparation for a polar expedition. All that birch flying near boiling steam. It's relaxation for people who find meditation to tame. Personally, I relax by lowering my caffeine intake for about 5 minutes.
But that intense heat is supposed to be amazing for circulation and detox. Plus, the Venic, those leafy bundles they use to gently, or not so gently, whack you are said to have all sorts of herbal benefits. Wow, it's like a natural, slightly aggressive spot treatment. Think of it as invigorating.
Invigorating, she says. I think my idea of invigorating involves less woodland shrubbery hitting my backside. But I suppose if you want to feel truly alive, almost dying of heat stroke in a wooden room is one way to do it. Each to their own.
Okay, maybe the banya is a bit intense for some. But Ukraine has some fantastic spa options too. Think mineral waters, mud baths, all those lovely natural resources. Imagine soaking in a warm, mineral-rich bath, feeling all your muscles unwind. Doesn't that sound divine?
Mud baths, huh? Sounds like a great way to reenact my Adler years. In picturing myself covered head to toe, looking like some kind of swamp monster, all in the name of wellness. I'm sure it's photogenic for Instagram though. Oops.
But supposedly, those mineral-rich muds are packed with goodness for your skin and joints. They're supposed to be super therapeutic and relaxing. Oh, and Ukraine's got some beautiful natural settings for these spas, surrounded by forests and lakes. It's like relaxation with a view.
Relaxation with a view of mud, right? Look, and not knocking mud, per se, and just saying, my idea of a relaxing view involves less earthy tones. Give me a beach, a cocktail, and zero chance of resembling a claymation figure. Ah!
Well, beyond Spoles, both countries have been getting into the whole healthy living thing, right? Yoga studios popping up, fitness centers, people jogging in parks. It's all about finding your inner peace and maybe getting a six-pack along the way.
Ah, yes, the relentless pursuit of the six-pack. Because nothing says inner peace like obsessively counting calories and agonizing over your protein intake. I find my inner peace in a large pizza, personally, but I yoga in a freezing Russian winter. Sounds like a recipe for flexibility and frostbite.
Think of the beautiful parks and nature reserves in both Russia and Ukraine. Perfect for hiking, fresh air, just getting away from the hustle and bustle. Nature is the ultimate stress reliever, right?
Nature, yes, lovely. Until the mosquitoes find you, the bears decide your lunch, or you realize you've wandered off trail and are now hopelessly lost. My stress levels actually increase in nature. Give me a climate-controlled room and a strong Wi-Fi signal any day.
Okay, maybe nature isn't for everyone. But seriously, whether you're into intense banyo sessions, soothing mud baths, or just a quiet walk in a park, both Russia and Ukraine offer different paths to relaxation and well-being. Well, it's all about finding what works for you.
Exactly, Mira. And for me, what works usually involves a strong cup of coffee and avoiding any form of wellness that involves being whacked with branches or covered in swamp goo. But hey, if you're into that sort of thing, maybe Russia or Ukraine is your spa paradise. Just pack extra towels, and maybe a hazmat suit for the mud.
Well, listeners, you can explore more about wellness and travel in Russian, Ukraine, and many other destinations on Jet of AI. And if you enjoyed this chat, give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. It's good for our wellness. Ooh.
Yes, subscribe for our wellness and yours, because listening to us is definitely therapeutic, in a very sarcastic, slightly caffeine-fueled way. Until next time, folks, and remember, when in doubt, just take a nap. It's free and requires minimal mud. Ah!
So now we're diving into opportunities for religious and spiritual needs in Russia and Ukraine. Sounds a bit serious, doesn't it? But hey, maybe we can find some funny spirituality somewhere.
Spirituality and funny? Mira, that's like saying diet and all-you-can-eat buffet in the same breath. Yeah. But alright, let's see if we can find some comedic gold in places of worship.
Well, I'm thinking about all those gorgeous churches and cathedrals. Russia's got those onion dome things, right? They look like they're about to sprout and become religious veggies. And Ukraine has those golden domes sparkling in the sun. So shiny, well.
Ah yes, the onion domes. Perfect for hiding giant religious pickles, I always thought. Seriously, though, both countries are historically Christian, predominantly Orthodox. So, plenty of churches, monasteries, the whole spiritual package.
Imagine trying to count all the churches. It'd be like counting stars, or with more golden incense. Oh, you could probably get a spiritual workout just visiting them all.
A spiritual workout? More like a calf workout from all that standing and kneeling. But you're right. For anyone seeking traditional Christian Orthodox spaces, both Russia and Ukraine are overflowing with options.
And it's not just Orthodox, right? I think they both have other religions kicking around too. Like, I bet you can find a mosque or a synagogue if you look hard enough. Variety is the spice of spiritual life.
Indeed, Russia, being vast, has a wider religious mix including Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, especially in certain regions. Ukraine is more homogeneous, but still has Jewish communities, Roman Catholics, and other faiths. Though, let's be honest, Orthodox Christianity is the main spiritual flavor in both.
If you're after a really good Easter service, you're in luck in either place. Imagine the egg hunts. Though maybe they're more serious about it than egg hunts, Still, gotta be some pretty amazing ceremonies.
Oh, definitely. The rituals, the chanting, the icons. It's all quite immersive if you're into that sort of thing. Though, if you're looking for a rave with neon crosses, you might be in the wrong place.
Now there's an idea. Maybe we should pitch that to some churches. Come for the sermon, stay for the light show. Oh, think it would boost attendance.
Mira, you're going to get us excommunicated. But back to reality, both countries constitutionally guarantee freedom of religion. On paper, at least.
Oh, sounds like there's a bud coming. Is it like freedom of religion, but only on Tuesdays and if you wear a funny hat?
Not quite hats. But in Russia, while freedom is declared, there's a bit of a priority given to traditional religions, especially Orthodox Christianity. Other faiths, especially newer or less traditional ones, might face more scrutiny or bureaucratic hurdles.
Bureaucratic hurdles. The most unspirited thing ever. Imagine having to fill out a form in triplicate to pray. Oops. Oregon, just gotta get this stamp.
Precisely, Ukraine generally has been seen as having a more open religious environment, though things are, shall we say, complicated right now. Whoa!
Complicated is putting it mildly, right? With everything happening, does that mess with people's spiritual life too? Like, can you even find peace and quiet for praying amidst all the you-know-everything? Ouch!
Well, conflict and upheaval tend to make people turn to faith, or question it, or both. Places of worship can become centers for community support, or even resistance.
So, like, churches become bomb shelters, but also places for hope. That's intense. Wow. Makes you think about what spiritual needs really mean in tough times, doesn't it?
Indeed, it's not just about pretty domes and chanting. It's about community, resilience, finding meaning in chaos. Though, I still maintain those onion domes are prime pickle storage.
If someone's looking for spiritual opportunities, both countries have a lot on offer, especially if you're into Orthodox Christianity and its traditions. Just maybe check the paperwork requirements before you try to build your own church. Especially in Russia.
And maybe pack some noise-canceling headphones if you're looking for quiet prayer in a conflict zone. Just a thought. All right, Mira, spiritual needs covered. Ready for the next topic, or should we spontaneously combust from enlightenment?
Combustion can wait. Let's see what other worldly comparisons we can make next. Ooh, bring on the next topic. Everyone, buckle up. We're diving into a topic that's as colorful and complex as a Bollywood dance, number social equality, minority rights, and diversity in Russia and Ukraine. There. Sounds serious, but trust me, we'll find the funny side, right, Leo?
Right, Mira, because nothing screams comedy quite like social equality. But in all seriousness, it's like comparing a Matryoshka doll to a PY sack egg. Both are intricately decorated, but what's inside is pretty different.
Think of Russia. This massive, sprawling land. It's like a giant buffet of cultures, enthesitis, religions. You name it, they've probably got a flavor of it somewhere. Wow. It's a bit like my wardrobe, totally chaotic, but somehow vibrant.
Chaotic is one word for it, Mira. Vibrant is another. Let's just say that buffet has sections that are definitely spicier than others, and not always in a good way. Russia's always been a melting pot, or maybe more accurately, a pressure cooker of different groups.
Pressure cooker. I like that. Ukraine, on the other hand, feels a bit more like a carefully arranged flower bouquet. Still diverse, beautiful, but maybe a bit more curated. Does that make sense? Or am I just rambling again?
Rambling? Never, Mira. But curated is interesting. Ukraine is interesting. Ukraine is crossroads, right? East meets west, empires clashing. So, yeah, you get this mix. But there's also been a strong push for a very specific Ukrainian national identity.
National identity? It's like when I try to decide on a theme for my birthday party, do I go full Bollywood or maybe a superhero bash? Decisions, but for countries, it's a bit more complicated than choosing between saris and capes, eh? Whoa!
You'd add more complicated, yes. In Russia, you've got this official narrative of unity and diversity. Sounds great on paper, right? Like a really catchy slogan for a travel brochure. Huh?
Travel brochure slogan. Russia comes with a diversity, stay because, well, it's diverse. Is it always sunshine and rainbows in this diverse paradise? I'm guessing not always. Oops.
Not always sunshine and rainbows is putting it mildly, Mira. Let's just say, some groups have historically gotten a lot more sunshine than others. In some have faced, let's call them weather events. Ouch.
Leo, you're so good at the euphemisms. So, in Russia, we're talking about, like, different ethnic minorities sometimes feeling a bit less equal in the social equation?
Bingo! And it's not just about ethnicity, right? Think about religious minorities, LGBTQ communities. The equality part of social equality can get a little selective.
That's similar. That's a bit like saying mostly delicious cake. It's still cake, but something's missing. But something's missing. Babe, is it a different flavor of cake? Or a whole different bakery altogether?
Different bakery, maybe. Ukraine, especially after, well, recent events, has really emphasized its Ukrainian identity. Its language, its culture, which is understandable, right? But it also means that other identities, maybe Russian-speaking or other minorities, can feel a bit sidelined.
Like being stuck in the back row at a concert when you really want to be front and center for the dance-off. Ouch. So in Ukraine, it's more about making sure Ukrainian culture takes center stage. And maybe other cultures are supporting cast?
Supporting cast is a nice way to put it, Mira. Look, both countries are incredibly diverse, but how that diversity is managed, celebrated, that's where things get complicated.
Complicated? Like trying to explain the plot of a telenovela to someone who's never seen one. Ugh. But it sounds like in both Russia and Ukraine, while they are diverse, the respect and equality part for all minorities still a bit of a work in progress.
Work in progress is a very optimistic way of putting it. Let's just say, both countries have room for improvement. Maybe a lot of room. Like renovate the entire building kind of room for improvement.
Renovate the entire building. I love it. So, it's not quite the utopia social equality and minority rights need a place, but hey, at least they're interesting places, right? Even if the diversity comes with a side of weather events and selective equality.
Exactly, Mira. And that's the comedic tragedy of it all. But seriously, it's something to keep an eye on, and hopefully, things will keep moving in a more inclusive direction.
Fingers crossed for more rainbows and sunshine for everyone in both places. And maybe a little less weather events. Oh, right, shall we move on to something a little less intense? Like maybe food? I'm suddenly hungry. Our current topic, we compare taxation, retirement, and social rights for long-term immigrants into countries. From taxes to pensions. It's like deciphering a secret code, isn't it, Leo?
Code is right, Mira. More like a puzzle designed by someone who really, really loves paperwork. Taxation, retirement, social rights sounds thrilling, right? But hey, for anyone thinking of packing their bags and heading to either Russia or Ukraine long term, this is gold.
Imagine moving countries and then realizing your retirement plan is just po-off. Oof. Let's start with taxes, because he doesn't love talking about those. In Russia, if you're hanging around for more than 183 days a year, you're officially a tax resident. Wow, it's like, congratulations, you've unlocked the pay taxes, your achievement.
Unlock the pay taxes achievement. An era. And in Ukraine, it's similar story. 183 days or more makes you a tax resident too. It's like these countries have a timer ticking, and once you hit that magic number, bam. You're in the tax club, by the way.
No opting out of this club, Leo. And what's interesting is that in Russia, the income tax rate for residents is generally 13%. Flat rate. Simple, right? Aha! Though, for higher earners, it can go up a bit. Don't quote me on the exact percentages, folks. Check Jet Off AI for the nitty-gritty details.
Always gotta check Jet Off AI for the fine print, Mira. Smart move. Ukraine, on the other hand, has an 18% income tax rate. So, slightly higher than Russia. It's like choosing between paying a baker's dozen or, well, just a bit more than a baker's dozen. Depends how many donuts you want to buy, I guess.
Donuts are a great way to think about taxes, Leo. Makes it almost palatable. And speaking of paying up, both countries have social security contributions, which are super important for things like healthcare and pensions later on. In Russia, these contributions are managed through different funds.
So I think that we can contribute. Funds within funds, Mira. It's like a Russian nesting doll of bureaucracy. Ukraine also has social contributions, and it's worth noting that the systems in both countries are undergoing reforms from time to time. So again, Giraffe AI is your friend for the most up-to-date info. We don't want anyone's pension disappearing like a magician's rabbit.
Pension Disappearing Act? No thanks. And retirement ages are another key point for long-term immigrants. In Russia, the retirement age has been gradually increasing. It's something to keep an eye on if you're planning your golden years there. Well,
Golden years, silver hairs, and slightly later retirement dates. Whoa, in Ukraine, the retirement age is also something that's been shifting. It's not a static number set in stone. It's more like clay, being reshaped by the winds of economic change. Dramatic. I know, but true.
dramatic but accurate, Leo. And for social rights, both Russia and Ukraine offer certain protections and benefits to legal residents, including immigrants. This can cover things like healthcare access and education.
Healthcare and education the cornerstones of a decent life, right, Mira? Both countries have public healthcare systems, although the quality and access can vary. It's not always the same as, say, a Scandinavian spa retreat, but it's there. And for education, public schools are generally accessible, though language can be a factor, of course.
Language is always a factor, isn't it? Trying to navigate healthcare forms in a new language. Ouch. That's a special kind of pain. Ouch. But it's worth researching the specifics of healthcare coverage and social benefits in both Russia and Ukraine if you're planning to live there long term.
Absolutely, Mira. Don't just assume everything will magically fall into place. Do your homework. Check out resources, maybe even consult with an immigration lawyer or financial advisor who knows the ropes in Russia or Ukraine.
Superpower indeed. And remember, social rights also extend to things like unemployment benefits and maternity or paternity leave in both countries. The specifics and eligibility criteria will differ naturally.
Naturally differing because they are different countries. It's not like they're sharing notes on social security policies in a secret underground bunker. Though, that would be a funny movie plot, wouldn't it?
Definitely movie material, Leo. The Social Security Secret Society. But back to reality for immigrants. Accessing these social rights might involve some bureaucratic hurdles. Paperwork, applications, proving your residency, the usual fun stuff.
Oh, the joys of bureaucracy. It's like a rite of passage for every immigrant. You haven't truly immigrated until you've spent hours in some office waiting in line with a number clutched in your sweaty hand. Whoa. It's character building, they say. I say, bring coffee. Lots of coffee.
Coffee, patience, and maybe a good sense of humor, Leo. Essential immigrant survival kit items. So, in a nutshell, taxation, retirement, and social rights for long-term immigrants in Russian Ukraine complex, but manageable with the right info and preparation?
Manageable is the key word, Mira. It's not a walk in the park, but it's also not climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops. Just be prepared, do your research, and maybe learn a few key phrases in Russian or Ukrainian related to taxes and social security. Where's the forms office? How much tax do I owe? Do I owe?
Excellent practical advice, Leo. And for all our listeners wanting to dig deeper into the specifics of taxation, retirement, and social rights in Russian Ukraine, Giraffe AI is your go-to treasure map.
Treasure map to avoid financial pitfalls. Love it. And if you enjoyed this little dive into the thrilling world of international taxation and social security, give us a like on YouTube, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what other country comparisons you'd like to hear. We're here to make even the most snooze-worthy topics slightly less snooze-worthy.
Slightly less newsworthy is almost Leo. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And remember, even taxes can be almost fun if you have a good podcast to listen to while figuring them out. Bye for now.
Bye, folks, and may your tax returns be ever in your favor. Oh, okay, I'll see myself out.
Our current topic. We compare the rate of meeting specific interests into countries. From niche hobby clubs to specialized events and community engagement, we bring passions to life. You know, it's like asking if you're really into competitive thumb wrestling. Where are you more likely to find your people?
Thumb wrestling? Mira, your interests are as wonderfully weird as ever. But you're right. It's about finding your tribe, no matter how quirky your passion. No matter how quirky your cranium, see which one is the promised land for, say, underwater basket weaving enthusiasts.
Underwater basket weaving does sound like a challenge. Wow. But seriously, think about all the cool, specific things people are into. Like, in Russia, you've got this incredible history of ballet, right? So if you're dreaming of being the next One Lake star, Moscow might be your stage.
True, Russia's got that serious ballet cred. You can practically trip over ballet schools in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And let's not forget their classical music scene. If your interest is composing symphonies that make people weep, Russia's got the conservatory for you. Though, maybe keep the weeping symphonies for after you graduate.
And what about Ukraine? They've got this amazing folk art tradition like Pasenki eggs. Those beautifully decorated Easter eggs. If you're obsessed with intricate egg art, Ukraine is like, come on in, we've got centuries of excellent inspiration. Ooh.
Vera, I'm stealing that. Ukraine definitely has a vibrant folk art scene. Think, embroidery, wood carving, all that good stuff. If your specific interest is keeping ancient crafts alive, you'll find passionate communities there, no doubt. Plus, their folk music is something else. Ever heard of Ukrainian bandura? It's mesmerizing.
Bandura. It sounds so magical. Oh, and you know, both countries have a huge love for chess. If you're a chess fanatic, you could probably find a tournament happening on any street corner. Imagine intense chess matches happening while someone's playing a bandura in the background.
Chess on every corner? Maybe not every corner, Mira. But yes, chess is huge in both Russia and Ukraine. They produced some of the greatest chess players ever. So, if your specific interest is crushing opponents in 64 squares, you'll find plenty of competition. Just be prepared for some serious strategizing.
Strategizing is key in thumb wrestling too, you know. But back to interests. What, if someone is really into, like Soviet era memorabilia? Would Russia or Ukraine be better for that deep dive?
Ooh, good question. For Soviet memorabilia, both countries have a lot to offer, obviously, but I'd say Russia, just because of sheer size and scale. You can probably find Lenin statues in someone's backyard. Although you might find more of a, let's say, nuanced approach to Soviet history these days.
Nuance is a nice way to put it. Maybe less backyard Lenin statues in Ukraine now. Oops. But you're right, Russia is vast. So for really specific historical interests, especially related to the Soviet era, it's probably got more sheer volume. Ah ha ha.
Volume, yes. But Ukraine has its own rich history going way back before the Soviets. If your specific interest is, say, Cossack history or Ukrainian Baroque architecture, you're going to be in the right place. They are incredibly proud of their unique cultural heritage. Wow.
Cossack history sounds like it involves some seriously impressive mustaches. And maybe some epic horseback riding skills. Oh, okay. What about something totally different? Like, if you're obsessed with a competitive ice fishing. Whoa.
Competitive ice fishing? Mira, you're pulling these out of thin air. But okay, let's roll with it. For competitive ice fishing, you'd give it to Russia, hands down. Vast frozen landscapes, long winters, it's practically a national sport there. You could probably join an ice fishing league.
Imagine the team jerseys. But, Ukraine also has some pretty cold winters. Maybe they have a slightly less intense, but still passionate ice fishing scene? Perhaps more of a relaxed, contemplative ice fishing vibe?
Relaxed, contemplative ice fishing. I like that image, Mira. Ukraine might be more about the quiet enjoyment of ice fishing, while Russia's all about the competition. It's like, in Russia, even your hobbies have to be hardcore.
That's a good way to put it. So, if you're into something super niche, those countries probably have pockets of enthusiasts. But maybe Russia leans towards the grand, organized scale, and Ukraine is more about the grassroots, community vibe?
Grassroots vibe versus grand scale. That's a neat way to summarize it, Mira. For really established mainstream interests like ballet or classical music, Russia's got the edge in terms of formal institutions, but for folk traditions, unique local crafts, and maybe a more personal touch, Ukraine could be the place.
Personal touch is lovely. And I bet both countries have amazing food scenes for really specific foodie interests. Like, if you're on a quest for the perfect borscht, or the most authentic pelmeni.
Borscht and pelmeni quests? Now you're talking my language, Mira. For those culinary pilgrimages, you're spoiled for choice in both Russia and Ukraine. Each region has its own twist on those classics. It's like a delicious rabbit hole you can fall into.
A delicious rabbit hole. I want to fall into that rabbit hole. Ooh, maybe we should plan a borscht and pelmeni podcast road trip. But seriously, back to interests with space. What about cosmonaut ICS? If you're obsessed with space, Russia is definitely the place, right?
Cosmonaut ICS, yes. Russia's space program is legendary. If your specific interest is rocketry, space history, or dreaming of being the next Yuri Gagarin, Russia's definitely ground control. Wow. Museums, space centers, they got it all.
Ground control to Major Mira. But, Ukraine also has a history in space exploration, especially with rocket technology. Maybe not as big as Russia, but still significant. So space nerds could find cool stuff in both places, just maybe different angles.
Different angles, exactly. Russia is the grand narrative of space conquest. Ukraine has contributed a lot to the technical side, the engineering. So, depending on your specific space interest, you might find different types of communities under resources.
That makes sense. It's all about drilling down to what exactly you're passionate about. And for really niche hobbies, sometimes it's not about official institutions, but about finding online communities and local groups. And I bet both Russia and Ukraine have those in spades. Oh?
Online communities, absolutely. The internet has made the world smaller for niche interests. No matter how obscure your hobby, you can probably find like-minded folks online in both Russia and Ukraine. For on social media groups, the digital world is your oyster.
Digital oyster. And speaking of digital, what about gaming? If your specific interest is like competitive esports or game development, where would you find more of a scene? Russia or Ukraine?
Gaming and esports. Both have growing scenes, but it leaned towards Russia again. Just because of market size and infrastructure. They have big esports events, more established gaming companies, but Ukraine also has a developing tech scene, so it's probably catching up fast.
Catching up fast is the spirit. Go Ukraine. And for some interests, it's not even about a specific country, but just about finding anywhere that supports your passion. Like, if you're into, say, competitive snail racing, haha.
Competitive snail racing? Mira, you're killing me. Okay, for competitive snail racing, I think you might have to build your own community, regardless of location. Maybe start a YouTube channel, document your snail racing journey. Jet Off AI could probably help you with that.
Jet Off AI to the rescue for snail racing content. I love it. And that's the thing, isn't it? No matter how niche, if you're passionate, you'll find a way to connect with others online or offline, in Russia, Ukraine, or it's all about putting yourself out there and saying, hey, anyone else you're obsessed with, insert wonderfully weird hobby here.
Exactly. Passion finds a way, Mira. Whether it's ballet in Russia, folk art in Ukraine, or competitive snail racing in your backyard, the key is to connect with your passion and the community will fall. And if all else fails, start a podcast about it. That always works.
Start podcast. Brilliant. Leo. Maybe the Global Snail Racing Podcast. Supported by Jetoff AI, of course. Well, that's our deep dive into meeting specific interests in Russia and Ukraine. Hopefully thumb wrestlers, underwater basket weavers, and snail racing enthusiasts alike feel informed.
And if you are a competitive snail racer listening to this, please reach out. We need to know more. But seriously, folks, if you enjoyed this podcast, give us a like on YouTube, tell your friends, and check out Jet Off A. Until next time.